What's up, viewers and listeners? My name is Jay. I'm a registered nutritionist based here in Bristol, working with BJJ enthusiasts across the globe, helping jiu-jitsu practitioners perform to the best ability on the mat, whilst making sure they are not doing anything stupid with their weight cuts. On today's episode, we had Ricky Bellingham. He is a competitive brown belt who is currently utilizing a sports sponsorship scheme with the Army, allowing him to train full-time. Ricky has competed at multiple IBJJF events, winning gold at the Europeans and gold at the Abu Dhabi World Masters, along with many other comps. In this podcast, we talked about weight gain, how discipline has helped him, competing at Masters and adult divisions, CrossFit and Jiu-Jitsu, under eating and weight categories, and much, much more. Thank you for tuning in. And of course, if you're not subscribed, please click that button and turn on the post notifications for further content updates. Thank you for watching and listening. Let's get into episode 17. Oosh. Right, guys, episode 17. My name is Jay. I'm the host of the BJJ Nutrition Podcast and the BJJ Nutrition Consultancy. We help jiu-jitsu athletes and hobbyists with their nutrition, making sure they're competing well and not doing anything silly with their weight cuts. We are here and joined with the infamous
Ricky Bellingham.
There we go. Thanks for joining us today, mate. Really appreciate it. We wanted to obviously get you on here because, again, we've had a few people, obviously, from the services. I'd probably say you're probably one of the leading representative, obviously, of doing that within the jiu-jitsu community, which is really cool. And obviously, you've been on a few podcasts before. We had a few things we want to pick your brain about and stuff.
Cool.
We always start with the same sort of thing, mate. What's your sort of history, your lineage, what sort of experiences you've had so far?
Yeah. Okay, so I've been training around about 7 years now. Started at the age of 31, so quite late on in life. I've been really lucky to be in the services and they give me the time to sort of train. Started off in Exeter BJJ, trained there for a year. Then my hometown's Plymouth, found a gym that was closer to home, and then lucky enough to get put on a sports scholarship, train throughout, compete throughout my whole sort of those 7 years. Anything else you suppose?
Where did you get your belts from then?
So I got all my belts from Ian Harrop. He was a black belt under Marco from Fight Zone. Did I get my blue belt? No, I got my blue belt from Ian as well. But as I said, I started off at Exit BJJ under James. And then I'm under Checkmat now, but I'm one of these competitors that, so is Marco, where we train all over. Yep. You know, I know different clubs have different rules, and people who are from this place, you can't train anywhere else. But I think as a competitor, you should be always just a general jiu-jitsu person, and you get friends from all different gyms and walks of life. So I think you should be going all over. I think I don't know whether the heritage or whatever belts matters that much anymore. Would you say it does?
No, it's interesting because obviously we've got, that's number one, there we go. I said it for the first time, I've done right.
I know, don't worry about it. What I'm going to do eventually is have a little box that pops up every time you say it.
Get one of those like little counter. I might try and go for a high score. So we've got some clubs around us which have got some great heritage, right? Nice. And they don't have any issue with training elsewhere. Right? There's other clubs that technically have great heritage but are underneath a banner type of thing.
Yeah,
it's just like, all right, cool, doesn't necessarily mean you know the Gracies type thing. And they do have problems with it, and there's also a mix in between, if you get what I mean. And so I think we were talking about it earlier. Again, I'm very much known as a gym gypsy. I know where my home is what I always say. I go to my main club, I do my main stuff there, but I cannot resist, like, I don't know, a dirty Friday night of going, or weekend, going to somewhere like an open mat elsewhere and just going and rolling with some different people.
I think it's good for your game as well. It's good for the culture of jiu-jitsu in a whole. It's, we're all, we might not look for friendliness, but I feel like we are really friendly. Yeah. You're sort of touching on different games, different techniques from different gyms. And I've got some guys that I know from around here that are like trained somewhere else, and I've known them since I was 15. And they're like, I want to come down and train with you, but I'm not sure if my coach will like it. I'm like, mate, you've been training like 2 years jiu-jitsu. I've known you for like 15 years. What do you mean? You're like, come and train with me. God, I'm not too sure. I'm like, all right, it's up to you.
That's a comment at you. He lives about 10 minutes away from my gym.
Yeah, we've had this chat a couple of times now, haven't we? It's like, so where I live, Jay's RGA, which is RGA North Bristol, is that what they call it?
Yeah, yeah.
So RGA Bristol is literally maybe a 10-minute walk from my house.
Yeah.
But I travel on my motorbike 20 minutes to get to Pedro.
Okay.
But it's because I didn't know RGA was there until Jay started there.
Yeah.
And I've been under Pedro for, I think I've worked out
break
now,
up with a
it's
positive X.
coming to about 8 years now, I think I've been under Pedro.
Yeah.
I'm the longest serving blue belt ever.
Blue belt forever.
I said to Jay about it, I was like, I don't know how I feel like saying to Pedro, like, I'm going to have to, I might, go and train RGA instead just because it's closer.
Yeah.
And the more I thought about it, the more it's kind of like, I don't really need to have a conversation because Pedro's on the understanding of any of his students, no matter who they are, he's always said, train wherever.
Yeah.
The time you have on the mats.
Yeah.
Which I know you're a big advocate of.
Yeah, definitely.
Doesn't matter.
No.
As long as you're getting time on the mats.
Yeah.
I might start a page. Shout out, free Tom from Sweatbox.
I don't feel any obligation to it, but I really enjoy Pedro's teaching.
Yeah, nice. And I do think that you will find teachers that you maybe get along with better, or their style suits you more. Some will be more concept-based teachers. Some will be more like move-based teachers. But then I do feel like, as you said, you can train anywhere else as well. Yeah. So I think you should almost find those good teachers, have that as your home base. Yeah. But then if somewhere is closer, 10 minutes down the road, well, could you go to like an open mat once a week there, or if they're cool with you turning up or whatever.
This is what Jay's been saying to me, like just do it for the laugh of it. But because we did do that open mat, didn't we, for the
we had a charity match, yeah.
And it was cool. Only me and Jay were really rolling. Everyone else was kind of like having a chat and showing off techniques and stuff. But just to go on someone else's different mat, because it's different for me, because I've never really done that before. I've always kind of stuck to my home. But since we've done the podcast, we've been Nottingham, we've been to Dre, we've been everywhere, and like it's cool to get on different mats. Yeah. And, like figure out how people teach the same techniques, but completely different.
Yeah.
Oh man, like
I've not seen that before. Yeah. And you realise how friendly it is then, because I think when you don't travel, you're like, if I turn up at that gym, they're gonna be like, where do you train? You train with them. But I think once you start to actually go around, they're like, especially the cool places, they're like, come and train. And like we have visitors come to us all the time, and we tend not to charge, to be honest, because I feel like it's because, as you said, they might do one session a week. So say if you could come to us for one session a week, like, and you've got a different game, you've got a footlocker game, or you're a judo guy and you're throwing everyone, and everyone's gonna be like, Rick, I'm getting thrown or I'm getting footlocked. Can we put this in the syllabus or whatever? And we'll be like, I'll talk to the other coaches. We'll see what we can do. And then the culture in that gym sort of changed. So I feel like it's good for us as well, to have visitors as well as other people.
Yeah, I think we're quite lucky with Peds. I'll stop going off a tangent in a minute. Like
the Tom Turner podcast.
Like Tom Shallow said the other day, like we're quite lucky because if a student like me or anyone else sees a technique and goes, Peds, like, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
He goes, show me. And he goes, that won't work because of this, and I'll show you why.
Yeah.
We'll do a leg lock on Peds, and it was like, pull his foot out, and
what the fuck is this?
We'll do that again. Like he's always open. He's never like, leg locks are banished in my gym.
Yeah.
He's always been open to everything, and I think we've had a couple of seminars coming down. We've got one coming soon.
Who we got?
Giancarlo Bodoni.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
I cannot wait for that.
Boom.
We've got Eduardo Tellez next week, Monday.
Yeah.
For listeners listening that want to come down.
That is amazing.
It's open to gyms and
a few
gym members and non-gym members. Yours as well, isn't it?
Open.
That will sell out quickly, won't it?
Well, I think they sold the tickets already for it, which should be good. But there's a few other names that are popping down, which we can't announce.
Yeah, we had him down as well. It's awesome, isn't he?
It's good. Sorry, complete tangent from that.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
So belt progression then. Any blue belt blues? That's normally a sort of topic that comes up quite often.
What for me is getting my blue belt, or
going from the blue belt to the purple belt, was it quite linear?
I think to be honest, if I talk about my white belt first, I used to do CrossFit, so I was strong and fit, and I think that's what got me through white belt, if I'm totally honest. I trained at Army BJJ, and they're all killers out there, and they just smashed me, and I got defensively good. I got a few techniques off my coach Ian. We drilled for a lot of time before I did the Europeans, but I probably had about solid techniques, probably 3 or 4, but my fitness was up there. So at white belt, I was like, oh, this is easy competing, blah, blah. And, you know, because I was winning quite a lot. At the start, obviously, I was losing. But because I competed after 3 weeks of started the sport, the Army said it would give you some time off. Do you want to do this BJJ competition? I was like, what's BJJ? Like, it's grappling. I was like, yeah, all right, sign me up. I should be able to win that. I'm strong and fit. I just got smashed. But, you know, towards the end of my white belt, because I competed so much, I was winning quite a lot, and I was like, oh, I think I can do quite well at this competing. Then as soon as I got to blue belt, did the same again. I jumped into competition, but what I found then is my strength and my technique was nowhere near as good enough as what it was to win that sort of league. So I had to sort of take a step back. Almost I had to take away some of my strength and conditioning sessions and just do more focused in on jits. That's when I moved down to Plymouth Checkmat. And there was I think we had about 20 members then, really small club. Ian was a brown belt. But really, looking back, that was perfect for me, selfishly, because there would be like 5 people in the class, and Ian would really focus in and be like, mate, you're doing that wrong, you're doing this wrong, and he would give me that technique. So my blue belt progression, I felt like it was slower, but then when I got to the end of my blue belt, I did understand by then that it's not strength, power that's going to get me through this, it's got to be technique, which I think sometimes that's slower for people because their mat time is not as much or as rapid as mine was. It just takes a lot longer to realise that. So you're like, oh, this technique's taken a long time to get. As we were talking about before, the average person's probably training 5 hours a week max. Whereas I'm doing that daily, I'm getting that feedback daily, and I'm getting tired, and like I could understand from halfway through my blue belt that I really needed to focus in on technique. Whereas I think sometimes that struggle, and that's why they might call it the blue belt. Yes.
I think it's interesting you touched on it in the fact that they need more technique because however much more popular jiu-jitsu is getting, right, we're seeing obviously some influencers, celebrities get to the blue belt stage, right, okay, and it's then like, here comes the hard way. This is going to be like the real test to see out of the pool of all the people getting their blue belts because they're come from a background like CrossFit or fitness or whatever it could be. It will be then see how much of that pool actually gets to purple belt all of a sudden, I think. And I think it will be a real kind of like character tester for a lot of them. So thinking like Big Pal Nasty, for example, we've got a blue belt. You got a few people from like the James Smith crew, obviously. Oli Amiga, I think his name is. He's a ginormous.
He's a blue belt.
Yeah, he's a blue belt as well, but again, athletic, was like an athlete for like optional nutrition, this type of stuff. So it puts into perspective like they've got the ability there, which is good. And
I think and it's easier for them. And I think sometimes some people will be like, oh, well, they've only trained a little bit of time, but they're getting their blue belt really fast. But I think for them guys, what we need to try and do with them as a coach perspective is we need to slow them down. And if you let them just fight white belts all the time, they're just going to be throwing them at the windows or whatever, or smashing them across the mat. And they're like, well, I'm winning everything. Why am I getting my blue? Whereas if you put them in then with the blue belts and the purple belts, you give them that opportunity to look at, right, this is a technique-based sport. Some of them don't learn that and they struggle with that, and that's why they'll stay there for a long time. But the guys and girls that do, I think that's when you get like the really greats like Gordon Ryan or whatever and stuff.
So, there's a good argument then. This is like, I know we joked about Cole Abate obviously getting his like black belt in 6 months basically, technically.
Yeah.
This is where the flip side of like time served versus over like skill level and base and that type of thing. Yeah. Because technically, obviously, Abate has got his black belt in 6 months from purple, right? Well, no, from blue. Is it no? From purple. Yeah. Obviously, he got brown to black within 6 months. Which
did he? Like,
basically, and it was sort of, he's winning competitions for it. And he was getting promoted on there. I think what was the joke? I think someone put a meme out of is like his coach threw his brown belt onto the mat as he was coming off, and he said, and then the flip side was like me going on to a competition, losing in the first round, my coach giving me a white belt again type thing, and I was like, that's pretty real.
The thing is with the, I guess, celebrity/influencer side, it kind of depends on the person as well, I think. Because Russell Brand is now a purple belt?
Yeah, I think it's purple,
Tom's now purple belt, Tom Hardy.
Yes.
Purple now, isn't he?
Yeah,
no, still blue.
I think he's still blue. I'm not sure.
No, he got his purple.
Did he get his purple?
No, he got his purple, and he got.
I know that you've trained with Tom because.
Yes, no, I haven't trained with him to be honest.
You haven't trained with him?
No.
You got Zuckerberg's got his blue now.
Zuckerberg's got his blue as well.
Not real, is it? Well, no. Okay, Zuckerberg, I can understand having his blue is real, but like
him and Elon are in battle.
It's the old argument, isn't it? Is yeah, okay, they're kind of coming into sport and there's a danger of them, I don't know, like infecting it or whatever, but at the same time, it's also getting more eyes on the sport. So then it means
it's
sport can
it's
evolve.
not a negative.
again.
I just think, like I said, as it becomes a bit more of a trend type thing,
Yes.
it's getting more and more popular. I think that blue to purple belt scenario is going to fill out a lot of people.
Yeah, I think so.
And
I
I
think
think
that happens naturally anyway. And sometimes that's because of injuries or whatever, and that time that you need to take off to injury, and then coming back no longer as a white belt, but you're coming back with a belt on, and anyone knows who's been in the sport a long time, when you come back from injury, they're all going to kick your ass. So, and if you can't take that on the ego, you've got the blue belt on and you got white belts tapping you out, you're like, that's hard for someone to take when you first. But after a while, you've got to understand that you could be a good black belt, but you need to take 6 months off for a knee operation. You come back in, the big boys, blue belts, are going to be taking you out. It's just the way it is for 6 months or whatever. That's difficult for people. I think you're saying about speed of progression. There's a few things there. I think one could be the mat time. We talked about that earlier on. Is if average is doing 5 hours a week, I'm doing 5 hours a day. Say 5 days a week or whatever. Let's just say I normally say I'm doing four times the average person. So it means every week of training is a month of someone else who's training, which doesn't sound like a lot when you do that, but then you do it a year. So every year is 4 years of mat time. And then 5 years is 20 years. And then you get to sort of 10 years is 40 years of mat time. So you can see the difference between someone that's trained for 10 years and gets their black belt progressively, or someone that's trained, for 2 years, but they've been training 4 times their mat time, which I think is all about the mat time. And also, you've got some individuals out there that don't need to spend a lot of time on the mats, but they can pick up the stuff. They've got the cardio, they've got the engine, they've got the body, they've just athletically a lot more, built than the average people. Normally the heavier weight as well, because you're dealing with ultra heavies or super heavies. I mean, they're tough to deal with if they're purple belts. They'll be smashing some, without a doubt, some 60, 70, 80 kilo black belts that are decent because they're 110, they're 120, they're athletic, they've got the gas and all that kind of stuff. So there's so many things that go into it. I think where it does get dangerous is when you've got gyms giving away belts for or whatever. So you've got
getting a stripe.
Or this is what you get.
Gyms, but I know that goes on. I've been in a gym doing work for the gym. And I saw that and I was like, wow. The time card that you punch in and then you turn up 4 times. Oh, you got a stripe.
Yes.
I couldn't believe it.
No. I think that's because I'm always cautious about different martial arts and how it always evolves, and I think sometimes because we're in this time now, we're like, oh, BJJ is going to be around forever. But if you went back 20 years, you looked at karate or whatever it was back then, they would have thought that then. But that ended up being where you could be, I don't know, whatever age you can be to get a black belt in karate now. I think it's like 12 or something. Do you know what I mean? Which is insane. But it's just because of that concept. More people, it becomes more popular. More gyms open up. They want the more money, more student base. More stuff goes out.
Also with belts is, with most gyms, it's also depending on the person's circumstances as well.
Yes.
If they can only get there like twice a week, for example, but those 2 times they are there, they are maximising that training as best of their ability. They've got kids, they've got a high-powered job, they're travelling all over the world. That can kind of not sway the belt, but I think taking into consideration if they don't have as much mat experience, but they're still putting the effort.
100%. 100%. I believe that. Yeah, definitely. I think, especially the blue belts stuff. I feel like if you've got, like you said, a school teacher that's like finishing work, trying to make class, comes in, can only do 2 sessions a week, but he's doing all sorts of stuff, and then you've got a 17-year-old who's like doing 2 sessions a week and he's murdering everyone. I'm like, you ain't got no responsibilities. You can be here 4 times a week. You can step it up, So I think you're right. Belts are given out for different reasons, and sometimes I feel like they don't really matter too much. The belts. I mean, I know they do, but we've had some stagnant white belts that are like been white belts for a long time. And it's like if you give them a belt, it almost puts a target on their back and it gives them a kick up their ass to like. Now you're going to have the other white belts coming after you, so you're not getting better by yourself. We've tried to give you the technique. You've been training with us for 4 years. There's a blue belt. Everyone else is going to kick your ass now, so get better.
I think it's good for me because I definitely started rolling differently after I started rolling with Jay, because you were a white belt for
probably about
just over a year and a half, maybe.
no longer than
A bit
that.
longer than that, maybe 2.
Yeah, that's
Blue
because
belt
of
for at least 7-8 months now.
yeah, but that's because of gym politics more than anything else.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm honest, but
like with that, it suddenly dawned on me that even though I'm a blue belt, I am at times getting subbed by white belts, and I'm like, I don't take it personally. It's kind of like, whatever. You know?
Yeah, of
I
course.
don't get down to the mats as often as I should.
No.
But at the same
Well, as
time,
often as
it's
you
kinda
can,
like,
it might be as well.
Yeah, and I'm kind of like, And in the back of my mind, there is a voice like, you should really be putting it on these people. And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, but like, what's that wrong with Jay? It can't be with my mind being like, no, it doesn't really matter.
No.
Because, am I enjoying it? Yes. Cool. Okay. Is this person getting something out of it too? Yes. Okay. So who cares? Both
Yes.
parties are in agreement. Everyone's happy. It's kind of like irrelevant.
It doesn't matter, yeah.
I think when I got, for me, I know I wasn't supposed to, well, first of all, I came from a club that has like time cards and stuff like that, but their
Yes.
argument is they got 500 members,
Yeah, it's
trying
hard
to
to
keep an eye,
track.
like,
Yeah, it's too hard.
even if you just remember 500 member names type
Yeah, no,
thing,
it's
it's going to be an
hard.
absolute
Impossible.
nightmare. And so, again, you could say it's somewhat systematic, but even then, I jumped to stripe, I think it was, before I got my blue,
Yeah.
right? Which pissed me off because I was going to do the absolute white belt, the absolute white belt champion the week before.
I love how the sights were set on the
Mate,
championship.
that WWE belt
White
looks
belt.
fucking epic. Everyone wants one, right?
Mate,
I don't
mean,
care.
Set your sights low, never fail, right?
I'm sorry. I think I'd rather an absolute belt than rather an IBJJF medal. To be
Yeah.
fair, I just think it looks way more. You had a stranger
Mate.
walk in your house, right? They see a medal, they see a belt on the wall, right?
Yeah, Devon open belt, you're like,
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
I'm
I'll
the
tell you
beast,
what,
it's
because
true.
you said that, I'm going to get my default bronze medal I have. The only medal I own is a belt. And I'm going to send it to you. Here you go.
Be fair enough.
awesome.
But obviously, when I got that belt, and then from there on, I was like, I really don't care because I made the schoolboy error when I started doing more no-gi of saying to someone, oh, "What belt are you? You like a blue belt?" And they go,
Yeah.
"I'm brown." I'm like,
shit.
Fuck. And I was like, always start high and work your way down. Don't ever start low because at least then they're like, "Oh, you a brown belt?" They're like,
Yeah,
"Oh no, I'm
yeah,
only a
yeah.
blue." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." At least it sounds more positive type thing. But after that, I'm not interested in the
No.
slightest bit, and I think. Where I certainly from my club standpoint that we've had guys who have been blue belts who've gone into the elite categories of some grapple industries, for example. I remember one guy, he had pulled Ross Nichols as his first fight, right? And he wasn't fazed by it. Obviously,
No.
again, Ross Nichols is a big name. Did he
Yes.
sub him? No. Did he lose to him? Yes. Was it
Yeah.
on points? That was it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But the way that they look at it was like, I want a challenge. Yeah.
Yes.
I want to see how do I roll with these individuals. Yeah. What holes have I got in my game? Because this individual is going to open it up massively for me instantly, right? Joke about rolling earlier. The amount of, like 3 times you crucifixed me. Right? I escaped 2 of them, I like to say, after a little bit to and throwing. But again, it's like, right, I need to tighten up my turtle way more to not obviously do that. Now,
Yeah.
without having that experience,
Yeah,
right,
you wouldn't be
I
thinking
wouldn't
about
be
it.
thinking about
No,
it.
no.
And so it's really, really useful. But we've gone on a massive tangent here, sorry.
That's all good.
So blue belt to purple belt, how was that then? Was that again competition based?
It was competition based. I think we're just going to go on what you just said then is I just compete every like month if I can, sometimes every 2 months. And what happens normally at the beginning of the bout is I lose quite a lot. And then normally by the time I get to like a year into my bout, I start to win. And then like the plan is that I win the big ones after being at that bout for say 2 years. You know, same again with numbers. Like you just said, someone went against Ross Nichols. You know, how old's that guy?
Yelchin, I think, is about is he mid-20s.
Yeah, so you think now he's had that experience from that young, now he's going to be, given 10 years, he'll be 35, he's going to be an absolute monster by the time he gets to 35. If he's, you know, he's already a monster, but I mean, he's going to compound that. So I think everyone waits to the end of the belt. They're like, oh, when I get to the end of my white belt, I'm going to compete at Devon Open, or I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to win that one. It's going to be amazing. Or then blue belt, I'll wait till the end, I feel ready. Everyone's feeling like that.
It seems like a mindset more than else.
Yeah,
you know
but
what I mean?
then like if you do the numbers, it's like the time you get to black belt, you competed 5 times. 5 times, and I'm like, that is like 5 times is nothing. Like, I compete every month if I can, so it means I'm doing 12 a year. So 24 by the end I've got to my, by the time I've got to the end of my white belt, then you know it's 48 or whatever. By the time I get to black belt, it's 100 competitions I've got under my belt. Like that's gonna make me a better black belt, no matter what. And the losses, but no one's gonna be like, oh, remember when you lost at the Devon Open at white belt and I beat you? And I'm like, oh yeah, well done. You know, no one's gonna remember that. They're gonna remember how good are you at black belt. So I think it's sort of it's trying not to get lost in that process and thinking, fucking hell, well, so that's what I've done from blue to purple and even purple to brown, and I'll continue to do it now.
So was that mindset sort of club driven? Just go out and compete, or did you take that onus to go and compete more regularly?
Well, because I'm in the army, it was like part and parcel with that. But I also went, like, as soon as I did the sport, I was like, do you know what? This is what I want to do. I want to do this for life. So how do I get good? And, you know, I think it was John Dano who said, oh, if you take 5 years or whatever and you know, do that kind of, you can change your life or whatever in that 5 year span if you can work at it like your job. So I thought, right, I need to do this for 5 years. How can I get as good as possible each year until, you know, the army pulls me back in, or until I find another way to keep on getting good? Because I knew it would take about 5 to 7 years, maybe 10 years to do it. And I just thought, we'll just compete, put your head down, don't worry about the belts. That's because every time you compete, it's going to open up a little hole in your game. So I knew that's what I had to do for those 5 years, and I was lucky enough to go home and tell my wife about that, and she was like, yeah, go for it. And I was like, all right, let's do it.
Thought it would be a harder conversation.
Yeah. No, she's
you want to do what?
She's like, what's BJJ? What's that? What are you talking about? You
Kind of
went to yesterday.
That conversation's harder than some of the competitions you
No, to be fair, she's just like, we're both like, just whatever makes you happy, you try and do.
Nice.
Because it's, you know, if I'm slaving away at a job I don't like, I'm going to come home miserable, and then she's going to be fucking miserable, the kids are going to be miserable. If I'm doing something I enjoy, it might take more time, or I might have to sacrifice money now, but I'm going to be happy, and then when I go home I'm going to be happy. We sort of, we fucking recognise that from young age.
If you don't mind me asking, you talk about a lot of the bigger competitions,
yes,
right? IBJJF stuff, all that type of thing. When did you start making the switch? Do you still do local comps? Was my first question, or not really?
No, I do local comps all the time. Yeah, I do local comps. Injuries at the minute have been tolling my life, but whenever I can, I love to do a local comp. I did the British, you can't really call that a local, but I'm trying to do adult as well now.
Yeah.
So adult as well at the local ones, and my goal is to win the British at black belt adult division.
Okay.
And I want to do adult locally. I'm not naive in thinking I'm never going to win the world's adult. I don't think. I mean, you know, let's just see where it goes.
You can call out
never know.
if you want.
You know, sure. I started at 31, so if I can win the British at adult black belt, I'll be like, that's a win for me, and I'll be.
You still compete at adult now?
Yeah, still compete. I don't know. I competed.
We had this conversation down in the car. I will enter Masters 1.
Yes.
Because I tried adult. I say tried. I've done like 3. I think 4 competitions in total since I've started.
Yeah.
And like I did 3 at adult, and I got subbed almost instantly.
Yeah.
By somebody who was younger than me, and
but
they just tanked me. And I was just like, I have no answer for this.
But then I've had competitions before when I've been in the adult absolute, for example, and I've come up against 17-year-old.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I'm not naive that I'm a lot more mature. I'm 31 years old,
yes,
right? I feel kind of bad, so I feel like I'm beating up a little kid, basically,
yeah.
Right? And to the point where I'm like putting obviously complete shoulder pressure across face on him, and you can hear him like gargling and all this type. Mate, it's competition. I'm fucking, I want to win. I don't really care.
You know you signed up. Do it.
But this, honestly, my coach at the time was saying, mate, I don't give a fuck if you're 17 or not. You just go and fucking win. Yeah, all that type of jazz. And I'm like, okay. And I think there's a difference between, and I think I brought this up on the last podcast with Mark Hibbard. There's a difference between a jiu-jitsu practitioner and a competitive jiu-jitsu person.
100%.
And I think the problem is with the discussion between like adult and masters, right? We've got a young kid who has come up through juvenile that we've been working with, smashing the juvenile scene, right? Getting all the medals, getting everything absolutely awesome. He's had his taste at the adult level, hasn't always gone his way, right? And I think the distinguishable big thing is that when we get into that adult level, right, we're not dealing just with kids anymore.
No.
We're going to find people who are just on the cusp of that Masters 1 bracket, who are a lot more mature, had all the growth that they've needed, not the human growth.
And all that kind of stuff. Yeah, of course.
And it's made them be able to look at their strength training and their conditioning and all that type of stuff. And then so people could talk about dad strength, for example. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like they have kids and stuff like that. So I think the argument works both ways. Like, I don't want to come against the athletic wrestler who's like, again, probably not in the UK, but do you know what I mean? Like a 22 type thing who's always done as just sport all his life, and it's unfair. But then there's going to be the other kids at 22 who've just done jiu-jitsu and not done any training type of thing, like CrossFit, and they're going to come against, I don't know, someone like yourself, who's going to go
full time. It's just like, what? How am I going to compete?
I think there's no right or wrong answers when it comes to
I think it's interesting because most of your like bigger comp wins have been in Masters 2, isn't it?
Yes.
You've done Masters 2 Gold IBJJF.
Yeah, I've won some Masters 1 IBJJF. I think I'm white belt. Abu Dhabi was Masters 2. But they're the big ones. Do you know what I mean? So they are the big ones. But I'm not naive to think if I go and try and do an adult at the Worlds or wherever, as you said before, they're starting at like 7. So as you talked about just now, mat time, you know, if I worked at their mat time, by the time they get to 20, they've got, let's say again, 4 times the salary, 60 years or whatever of mat time.
We did it.
So it's hard to
we did it with the other day. I went into the new gym opening, and they had the belt colours on there.
Yes.
And I've seen coral.
Yeah.
And I didn't realise there's another one after coral.
Yeah.
And it's like a pure red belt.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? And it gives the exact time serve, ironically, like 40 plus years.
Yeah.
We're like, how long before Kolabati gets his one? And it was just like, Kolabati's going to be like 67 by the time he gets there. And I was like,
many people that have the full
I think there's only one per. I know there's like about 20 coral belts out there. I think,
but then, you know, he goes on time served. But as we just said before, it's like, okay, if that guy or girl was like a school teacher through that time, then fine. But if you've got a full-time competitor that's been training 10 years or 20 years, that's 60 years of your average mat time. The average person is never going to catch up to that person no matter how much they try because of that mat time. So it's like, you know, I'm not naive in thinking, oh yeah, you're going to win the Worlds. And I think the big ones for me will be Masters. If I could do the one in the UK, the British, I'll be more than happy with that. As I said, I didn't start till I was 31.
And that'll be an adult.
At black belt, yeah. If I could do that, that would be like my dream. And then that's me. I'll still do Masters at the Europeans and other places in the world.
Do you get many matches then at Masters 2?
Yeah, so let's just say, well, I had 45 competitors in Vegas last year, a brown belt, which is, you know, that's sounds a lot, but then you go at Masters 1.
Okay, blue belt middle.
Yeah, blue belt middle.
It'd be like 300.
I think Masters 1 middle at the Europeans, I think I had like 150. Yeah, but it was blue belt. I think what happens is a lot of the people get excited when they get their belts and they're like, oh yeah, I want to compete, do this for my life, and then they get to like end of their blue belt purple, and they're like, oh fuck, I'm never going to catch these boys up, I'm going to stop competing. So they just cut out, because I find as soon as you get the purple brown, the brackets just get a lot smaller, which, you know, for me is better because it's less people. Do you know what I mean? I've got 150 people now, I've got 50 people. So yeah, there's still big brackets, 50, but it's just, it doesn't matter, like people always say about the bracket numbers, it's only ever going to be like 5 or 6 fights because the way the bracket system works is straight away after round 1, 50% of the people are gone. Then round 2, 50% of they've gone. Do you know what I mean? So it doesn't matter if there's 100 or whatever, or you're going to get roughly the same amount of fights no matter what. I mean, I've had sometimes more fights at like Devon Open or whatever because I do gi and no gi at the same day. I do the absolutes. So the number of fights for me is not really that important. It's just sometimes difficult to put that into the program if I'm doing a competition, because sometimes, especially now, if I do a Masters 1, I'll get like 3 fights sometimes. And I'm like, well, I'm going to deload for a week. Yeah. Then go on, 3 matches, which is technically 15 minutes. And then the week after, I'm getting back into training again. So it's probably, that could take 2 weeks out of a month of like a deload and then a re-ramp up of training for a Masters competition, which is 3 rounds. So I'd rather do an adult, then maybe take a little bit of a deload, or if I lose the adult, don't really deload. And if I lose the adult at the Devon Open, I'm like, well, I'm not too asked. You know, I'm not too bothered about it. It's all about, for me, I want to get that black belt medal. Then I'll be happy.
It's interesting. All very interesting. So very focused, obviously, in terms of training structure.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of, obviously, jiu-jitsu practitioners out there who it's just like more mat time, more this, more this. And watching obviously your social media and stuff like this, you're taking everything in consideration, right? And I don't think it's as very science as what you see with, I don't know, Gordon doing his bodybuilding, lifting and that type of stuff. You're getting your cardio in, you're doing the rounds, that type of thing. Did that come from the military, that experience, or did you have to do a bit more research to think about how to train and stuff like that? Or
yeah, I think because I'm a physical training instructor, we call it in my unit, so I train the men and women. I normally set up a little circuit or whatever. So I got that little background anyway. What I didn't realise though when I got into jiu-jitsu is that the training, because I went from doing normal soldiering then to doing full-time jits, I was like, right, so I'm going to do CrossFit in the morning at 06, then I'm going to do the 10 a.m. session, I'm going to try and get back for the evening session, and I tried that for like a year and a half, and every 6 weeks I'll get an injury, or normally what happens is my immune system starts to shut down. I know because I'll knock my lip or something, I'll get an ulcer, or I'll just be feeling groggy or something like that, so I can feel my immune system starts to like shut down, where I'm just like fragging myself too much. So for me, like, it's took 3 or 4 years of me thinking, okay, and also I'm getting older as well, so it has to sort of change as I'm getting older. My sort of program has to change. Juggernaut training systems, is that Chad? He's a purple belt, I think. Chad, yeah. I watched some podcasts of him, and he was talking about he has his hard days, medium days, and then slow days, and that's what I sort of try and stick to now as them. So it took a long time. I think I made some mistakes with food and all that stuff as well, because we'll probably go into a bit more, but my nutrition was like massively. When I first started training, I just thought, I just won't eat till 12. I did the old intermittent fasting thing,
That's right.
which there's 2 schools of thought because it means I was fucking knackered, and normally I'm doing like the 7 o'clock, so today, for example, I did the 6:30 wrestling class. You guys came in at 10. I did some pre-ab work before that as well at the gym. Then I did the 10 o'clock Noe class, and we did some rounds after. But each class, I'm like, someone fresh is coming in, and if I'm rolling with them, they're normally like, I want to try and catch Rick today, do you know what I mean? And if I've had no food, I'm fucking sometimes knackered. But what happens then is that forces me not to use fucking technique, forces me, my strength and my conditioning is gone. I have to focus in more on technique during that period. I think it's a stupid way of doing it, and I would never advise it of anyone. But I think out of that year that I started to do, like, I was so tired that I couldn't use my engine or my strength to sort of get to positions. I had to really focus on technique. I always find the smaller people in the gym are always the most technical, because they have to be. They can't use the leverage and levers or whatever as much, so they've got to be spot on with their technique.
It's something you said earlier when we were doing obviously that butterfly sweep about bigger guys obviously having more open space obviously to go through there, and it's one of the things that the majority of the guys I roll with obviously are smaller, right? Super technical, actually incredible. And don't get me wrong, being subbed 20 times in like 15 minutes is obviously so enjoyable, but the way I kind of look at it is that they're going to pick apart my game so much more easier because they're going to have more space to some degree, and so it's going to make me tighten up to as if I'm rolling with a 60 kg person.
100%.
And so there's always like positives to go with it. I think for a lot of people, we've heard about your training schedule and how hectic it can be. The one thing when I heard about it was like, okay, as you're getting older, what's the recovery side of things? So recovery's getting more and more. So like now, for an example, I binned off the evening sessions now, so no longer in the evening. Killed me to do that at first, because I do like the evening classes. They're like busy, a bit more of a different crowd. But now the gym where I train at, they've sort of let me structure a program down there where I'm just training in the morning mainly till about 12ish on the mats, should we say, and doing some prehab work. But I'm in the sauna every single day if I can, or if I'm not in a sauna, I'm in the hot bath. Sometimes I'm too busy to get in the sauna, and I just haven't got time for it. So I'm making sure I have the hot bath every evening. I've got to stretch every evening, and a lot of my strength and conditioning work now is aimed towards recovery. So it sounds weird, but like a lot of my, do quads and hamstrings to protect my knee. I do pal-off press to protect my lower back, a lot of core work. So a lot of my strength and conditioning sessions are focused on prehab work, in other words, neck strengthening from my neck. So sometimes they're not that intense, but they're aimed at keeping me going for a long time. And I think, I've been doing stuff like Zone 2 now a lot more, getting that in there. That's had a big improvement recently on my game. I feel like my conditioning's got a lot better. And you could class that as recovery, I feel. It's interesting because people, again, when you start doing Zone 2 work, you're, I don't know, half an hour into it, you're kind of like,
yeah, oh, this is boring.
what am I doing?
Yeah.
Right? I'm not even getting a sweat on type
No.
thing, and everyone's looking at you like, he's just like
Mental.
slowly pedaling on this fucking bike type thing. Like, is he going to do anything else type
Yeah,
thing?
yeah.
And then eventually you start doing it more and more as like compound interest.
Yes.
Like, right, okay, cool,
Yeah.
this is recovery. And I think to some degree, I imagine your CrossFit days obviously helped with this in the sense that nothing more demoralising when you look at a WOD and you go, so I've got to recover while I'm doing burpees.
How can I do this?
I can lie on the floor for maybe an extra half a second, maybe.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's one of those things. But no, that's interesting to hear about that. And so with the baths and saunas, I think doing it every day for recovery. Most people, when they hear that type of stuff, they're talking about weight cutting and things like this. And obviously it's a hot topic, which I know you're not too happy with. In that, sense,
I don't really agree with it much.
Have you had to change your weight much in competitions at all, or have you always sat the same weight?
Yeah, so it was like I started at a white belt. When I said before I got excited, I was about 80 kilos, which, you know, at the minute I'm not far from that, but I would cut down to, so I fought at middle, I believe, at 82. And then at blue belt, I had a stage when I thought, because I said before, I felt like my technique, well, I went through like a little phase in my mind where I was like, oh, maybe I need to cut down because these guys are stronger and fitter than me. I'm not fit enough to beat these blue belts, but really what it was is my technique wasn't there.
Yeah.
But it takes, you know, you have to convince yourself and you lie to yourself about some things. So I went down to lightweight, I think, which is 76, but it's in the gi as well. So it's like,
more like 74.
Yeah, 74. Walking around and it was miserable. I had to like do sweat runs the night before. You know, I wouldn't eat on the day, and now it's just carnage for me. I mean, at the minute, I think I'm sitting around 83 kilos.
Okay.
Most people would be like, well, you compete at 82. Yeah. You know, but I'm like, well, the thing is, so I'm in the middle of a training phase. At the minute, I'm training all morning, get on the scales, you know, in the morning still. But I know when I have that deload week we were talking about before, I'm naturally going to put on about 2 kilos just because my body's recovering. I'm going to eat some more food. I'm not going to be burning off as much. I'm trying to get all the glycogen into my muscles. So that means my 83 that I'm at now is going to go to 85. Then you put the gi on top of that, I'm going to be 87. Then I'm going to fight 88. You know, I don't think about cutting because I feel like the actual cut itself takes too much away from the competing. It's a weird thing to actually do. You know, you wouldn't go up to a guy or go on open mat and be like, oh, what do you weigh? I'm 87.2. Oh yeah, sorry, no, you're too heavy for me. I'm not going to fight.
A quick word about one of our sponsors, Grapplers Soap. The team wanted to find, right, the best possible defense against skin infections, which normally we get from each other or off the mat. This, in turn, led Dan and the team into researching more about soaps and essential oils, which turns out has been used for thousands of years, actually, as a natural defense against infection during the plague. Slightly twisted story here, but grave robbers in England knew of the power of essential oils and smothered themselves in it before exhuming and stealing corpses. Useless fact of the day for you there. But Dan and the team had tried several soaps before, but none of them just simply wowed them. So he started to make his own. Months more research, trial and error led to finally this golden nugget, Grapplers Soap, which you'll be pleased to know the recipe is CPR registered and approved by pharmacists. The use of a specific method to lock in the amazing natural smell, no cheap fragrances used here, which means the soap and use smell great and stand the best chance of staying healthy. Although the soap was developed for grapplers alike, it is now widely being used by non-grapplers, and Dan is always delighted to hear from customers about how it's cleared up dry and itchy skin, or relieved eczema, or just simply made you feel awesome. The smell alone has been a massive hit with men and women alike. So enough waffle for now. Go and get yourself some now at www.mrbassets.com, or go check out their Instagram page for some very funny memes at Grapplers Soap. Thank you, guys.
You just fight everyone, you know, and you don't worry about the weight too much. I don't know why, especially at the lower belts as well. I see so many people who are like, nah, I need to cut weight, and I'm like, how much weight you got to cut? Oh, I've got 5 kilos to cut this week. I'm like, what the fuck? And you're trying to up your training, and you're trying to memorize technique, and you're trying to be happy.
Your
first ever competition. You're going to go there and like be starving, get on the scales, get on the mats, and think you're going to win. It's absolutely impossible. It's the biggest thing I think where people fall into the trap of, oh, I need to, you know, I'm small. I'm like 5 foot, I don't know, 10 or whatever, maybe 9, and most of the guys I fight, they all cut. So they're like 6 foot, and I can feel in them that cut sometimes when I'll fight them. You know, my game's very placid, so I normally get to my position. They'll normally be like, wah, and it's very sporadic, especially at the beginning of a tournament. They're very like wah, scrappy. I'll stay safe, and then like 2 minutes in, like my energy level's fine. Like then I'm like, okay, now it's my game. Then I'll start to work my way on top. I get on top, and then I'll slowly crush from there. And I feel like if you cut down, especially if you cut down 5 or 6 kilos, like that's going to have an impact on you no more, but it's on your central nervous system and all that other kind of stuff where like it's almost 2 battles. It's like
it's tricky, and I appreciate obviously anyone. The problem is we look at the media that goes around as to why it transitioned from like MMA into jiu-jitsu.
Yes.
They hear making weight and they all think it's the same thing, right? And the naivety behind it is people aren't aware that day before weigh-in, there's a lot more you can do.
100%,
right? And take full advantage of. It's like, again, I was quite surprised. I didn't realise that NAG do a day before weigh-in.
Yeah, they do, yeah.
And I was like,
AJP.
huh? And that's like UK as well. I was like, no one's doing this. And I'm like, right, a few clients are like, hey guys, do you fancy going a bit earlier? So it makes it a little bit more easier. But they have that naivety. And then I go to the extent of looking at the last local Bristol Pro competition, got all the white belt divisions other than Ultra, and got what they weighed in on. So it tells you on Smooth Comp after the event what they weighed in.
Yes.
On average, everyone weighed in under by 1.7 kg.
that is crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
So people then worry about this weight difference.
Yeah,
right? This
yeah,
was
yeah.
in no gi as well, so it wasn't as if like they had any like it was like any gi like alterations there type thing.
Yes.
And they're saying, right, you're floating around 4 kg, I don't know, under the next weight bracket, right? Your opponent there, like I said, is 1.7. Let's call it 1.5, right?
Yeah.
You're now worried about what, 2.5 kg. You then eat more food. You probably put on a kilogram.
Yeah.
You're talking about 1.5 kilograms, 3 pounds, right? You go look at your mate in the gym and he says, I'm 3 pounds heavier than you. You gonna give a fuck?
Yeah, you're not gonna say, no, sorry, I can't fight you today. No, it's not gonna happen.
No, it's not gonna happen. And so you just crack on with it. But
especially in a technique-based sport as well, I feel like it's all technique, and I think people just they tie too much to winning the lower belts competitions. Like, if you lose in comp, then that's direct feedback. You know, going back to what you were saying before about do you do masters or do you do adult, I think, you know, it sounds like, tell me if I'm wrong, but you're more of a hobbyist. So as a hobbyist, you're getting in, say, 3 or 4 times a week. So why not do masters? Because, you know, sometimes you'll do adult, and as you said, they'll spank you in like 5 seconds. You never get to test any of your sequences out. You don't know how to feel. But when you go into the masters division, okay, you're going to get deeper into your sequences, whatever your guard is, your half guard sequence, whatever. And then he's going to find a crack somewhere, maybe. Or you'll get all the way through it and you'll be like, yeah, I've won. You know, I'd say once you started to win a few masters, then why not test out an adult division? Because then they might show you little cracks. It's all about finding cracks in your game and then fixing them, fix them. Get that direct sort of feedback from the competition. And like, don't give a fuck about winning or losing. I know let's go on social media like, I've won, fucking this, that, and the other. You know, people always, whenever I post up something that I've lost, because recently I've been competing and I've been coming back off a lot of injuries. And people are like, why are you competing when you come back from injury? I'm like, because like that is motivating. I fucking hate losing. I hate losing, but it motivates me to make sure I'm going to keep doing my fucking physio. I'm going to spend that hour that I need to do fucking glute bridges or to fix my back or the boring work that no one wants to do. I remember losing to fucking matey 17-0, you know, and thinking, fucking hell, I need to fix my back. I need to fix my whatever it is, whatever issue I'm facing. It motivates me for that next phase of training, and that's what you got to think of it is. Like, yeah, okay, let's get motivated
not
for
about
the next
where you
phase.
are, about where you're going.
Yeah, where you're going. Yeah, because if you think, oh, well, you know, I want to win this and I'm tying everything to this, I'm going to cut down weight and I'm going to make sure I eat this, and it's like, fuck, you're putting too much pressure on yourself. Yeah. Like, and because it's something we all enjoy as well. Like, we do this and we want to progress in it because we enjoy it. Like, then you're fucking putting all that pressure on yourself to like get down to the weight class.
It's interesting.
And, like,
you don't go and join jiu-jitsu just to go and get the medal.
Yeah, you're like, oh no, but I want to win fucking whatever you want to win.
Everyone wants to win.
Yeah, everyone wants to win.
Like, you didn't
100%.
you didn't walk into that club going, I'm going to go and get IBJJF World Gold Medal.
Yeah.
And if you did and you've got that far, like, so kudos to you.
Yeah.
But the majority of us is just never going to get to that point,
and you just enjoy it. So like, why put pressure on yourself?
Why does a £5 medal make any difference?
Yeah, it doesn't.
We joked about it because Ashley Bendel from Trey, she's actually got a medal where she went and competed in 2022, right? And it actually had 2021 on there. I said, she was like, oh, cheers IBJJF, all this fucking effort. You can't even give me the right fucking medal type thing.
It's interesting though, because like you said, I definitely fell into that trap because I know Jay spoke about it quite a lot on the podcast, a couple of different episodes now. Like, I focused so much on making weight.
Yeah.
I didn't think about a game plan. I didn't think about my technique.
No.
I didn't care. All I knew is I had to make that scale.
Yeah.
I went in, I was like, cool, 82, here we go.
Yeah.
And then it was like,
what am I doing
shit,
now?
what the fuck do
Yeah.
I do? He's got my grips.
Yeah, panic.
And I got
Yeah.
armbarred. And then I had Pedro shouting in the corner, he's like, hide your arm. And I'm like, yeah, hide my arm. The wrong arm. The one that's not being tried. I was like, oh no. And then it was like, yeah, over. And I was just like, and my biggest takeaway from that, and spending a lot of time with Jay and going to see a lot of people, you know, up and down throughout the belts, throughout the country, different gyms.
Yeah.
Loads of people with the same mindset. Weight doesn't matter. Like you said, if you go to open mat, you end up rolling more than your mates that you roll with.
Yes.
Probably 100 kilo.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you care?
Yeah, you don't care.
It's like, oh, this is funny. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the
yeah.
minute there's like an incentive for a
Yeah.
medal,
Oh,
or
I need to
I'm,
cut down,
representing
yeah.
the club or something like that. It's like, oh, I have to only do my own competition.
Yeah.
Oh, you're 0.4 over, get out. I'm
Yeah.
not interested. I won't fight you.
No.
Do you not know who I am? Sort
Yeah.
of thing. Like, yeah, it's silly,
crazy.
isn't it?
I've always had this biggest fear, obviously being a nutritionist, of the newspaper article, nutritionist doesn't make
Yeah,
weight.
doesn't make weight. Like,
I'm like, fuck,
always
business is
7
over.
kilos under. What are you so far under? Just in case.
Just in case. Jay, you're so shredded. Gordon is anything. Like, yeah,
Just to meet the ultras. Just in case.
Yeah.
What I was going to say, so you mentioned you did some of the shit stuff, which obviously you look back now and you're just like, why the fuck was I doing this? What was the turning point? I know obviously you reached out to a nutritionist, I will talk about it in a bit, but you said running around with like sweat bags, that type of stuff. What was the turning point? At what belt were you? Did someone tap you on the shoulder and go, mate, what the fuck are you doing type thing?
Yeah, I think it took me quite a few years to understand it because once I spoke to a nutritionist, I got one down here, Lorne, who is a great guy. He basically, I started to wear the work like you wear, and he said, what are you burning, what are you eating, just take a look at it. And I was like, right, so this is what I'm burning, so these are the amount of carbs you want to be eating. And I was like, what the fuck, there's no way I'm eating this many carbs in a day.
400 to 500.
Yeah, and I was like, fucking hell, this is, and I got my wife to cook with me, and I was like, that's just so much fucking rice, how am I going to eat that? But it made me realise, right, I need to start eating more, so we focused in, I got the simple meals in, small but a lot, blah, blah, blah. But what happened then is injuries started to fucking go away.
Yep.
My retainment of the knowledge as well, because you said before, is if you're concentrating of the weight and you're cutting carbs or whatever food you're cutting out, and then you're ramping up training because you've got comp coming up. So you're not only fucking depleted, but you're also expecting yourself to perform because you're going to do the competition classes, you're going to do that to try and ramp up for the...
Yep.
Or then you're going to think about the game plan that you're going to do. It's too much pressure on your brain. But what happened is less injuries happened when I started to eat more. Took me a while to feel comfortable where I was. I mean, I did 82 for a while, but because I started to do a lot more strength training, I just got stronger anyway, which then came with heavier weight. And so I started to tip over that 82 range.
So let me ask you, what made you reach out to a nutritionist? I think that'd be good for our listeners as well and viewers type of thing.
Yeah.
Because you've come from a militant background, right? And not to stereotype, there's obviously people who think that they know a lot already and that we can conquer everything and we can achieve it type of stuff. What was the tipping point for you to go, actually, I need some more help? What was the...
I think, I've been really lucky and I've got a mind frame of, I don't think you can solve anything by yourself. And I did start that way, I'll just be having an extra protein shake a day and make sure that I have a bowl of cereal, whatever, in the morning. But then when the injuries started to happen and the training volume got to the level where I was like, fucking hell, it's hard to maintain this training. I need the fuel. I've also done the same, as I said, I'm PTI qual, so physically trained instructor qual, but I've got a strength and conditioning coach, because, and the nutritionist, he was someone that I was working with at the gym, was like, don't just have a look, see what you're eating. So it was more that he reached out to me, which is really helpful. Looking back, I do wish that I'd found someone sooner, just to point me in the right direction, because I was a PTI, so I thought I knew about all this kind of, I thought I knew I was eating enough carbs, but when he said to me, look at the amount of carbs you meant to eat, I was like, fuck me, that is a lot of food that I'm not eating in a day. And then when I started to put it in, the weight came on, but I felt like 15% better, I would say, if I put a number on it in the gym, because I'm training with the same people a lot, all the time, and we train every day together, and so I get a feel of how my body's reacting and when I'm tired and when I'm not, because the feedback off them and how well am I doing? Is he choking me out today? Is she, whatever. Then started eating the food. Was like, fuck me, I'm just feeling a lot more better. A bit fatter, but for me it's not an issue.
It's not a bodybuilding competition.
No. So dad bod, whatever you want to call it, with age, that came along. But my game improved, and and I think for longevity, which is what we're all here for, you know, we want to get good at something, we've got to do it for a long time. I think eating enough food is fucking the way forward, and I think you're gonna have to reach out for help, because we can lie to ourselves as well a lot. We're like, oh yeah, I think I'm doing everything right, but just having someone to look at it and say, let's have a quick look at what you're doing. Oh, you haven't got enough iron, or it could be something simple like that where you're like, fuck, I made a mistake for the last year, you know.
Because this is what I was saying to obviously one of your students back at the club type of stuff, is that we have this kind of premeditated idea that we should just know everything.
Yes.
Right? And my biggest argument is, and especially when the purposes of doing this whole consultancy, podcast, YouTube, all that type of stuff, right, is that if you never had that chat with that nutritionist, all the students below you will be looking for you for advice. Right?
Yeah, and I'm time to cut weight.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden it's just like, okay, cool, and it
spirals.
It spirals down. And
Yeah.
the purpose of this, and I mentioned this obviously on another show, was the fact when I reached out to a few of the, not everyone's top end, but ADCC world type guys, right? When we go to a few seminars and stuff, I've spoken to them about what they've done. And they've kind of said, oh yeah, I'll do X, Y, and Z. I'm like, Jesus Christ, that's horrific.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Not to name any names and stuff.
No,
like,
no.
Shit rolls downhill, and I'm like,
Of course.
fuck me, what's at the bottom going on
Yeah,
here type
yeah.
stuff. And I'm like, okay, there's just no knowledge around this.
No.
And the problem is, you as an instructor, or for anyone else obviously who's got clubs and stuff like that, you aren't told what to do.
No.
It's like,
it's a totally different thing.
get your students through the door, get your rent paid,
Yes,
teach them as
exactly.
much as you can do, and then we appreciate that you guys have got so much more responsibility. It's like, unfortunately, you become a dermatologist, where everyone's sending you is infection, right? Your HR for any gym politics going on,
true.
right? And then on top of that, you've got all these other responsibilities, and it's like, if you guys got no information on it, you're reliant on what you already know.
Yeah.
And that's where it's like, okay, we've got aspirations to do stuff with UK BJJ type of thing, which would be awesome, but it's really tricky. And so what I'm trying to probably get out here more so is that if you think you know everything, right, unless you've done the qualification behind it, you probably don't.
No, 100%. I think you're right. And I think that's something that really the BJJ in general should, you know, pass down and teach you, because there's always people that's going to teach you something new. And I think if you ever get in that mindset like, oh no, I know everything now, your game's going to stagnate, your school's going to fall to shit. So I think that's something, as you said before, what made you think about that? I think it was actually being taught some techniques sometimes from some people, and then maybe I need to reach out from somebody else to teach me some techniques and go to a different school every now and again and do, you know, and then I can apply that to strength and conditioning, I can apply that to nutrition, I can apply that to business, I can apply that to a lot of things where if you ever think you know all the answers, you don't know the answers.
I say this to everyone: if you come across someone who thinks they know absolutely everything on it,
it's bullshit.
Run a fucking mile.
Yeah, it's bullshit. It's absolutely bullshit.
Especially you get someone like, I don't know, Mikey Musaneshi, who's creating new leg lock systems.
You're
like, hold on, I thought everything was already taught now. And then John Danaher comes out with, I don't know, a 2-hour-long DVD on the hand fight of the pinky or something like this. And you're like, where the fuck's this come from? And you're like, it's ever evolving. And so, exactly. Like dojo style, like, but it's the same thing, and it's really interesting that it's an evolving game. And so there's a lot of, I don't know, we've got a bit of an ongoing joke with a couple of clubs at the moment about this carnivore diet going around at the moment. And I have to stand my ground in the sense of, based on what we know so far, it's not going to support that type of sport, right? However, like the keto diet, when it first came around, we weren't aware that it was going to help epileptic children.
Yeah, true.
So I can't just dismiss it straight away. So don't get me wrong, when we get a bit more research and we try and test these things, like John Danaher with his hand fighting instruction, or people are like, what the fuck is this? But then once it's been tested and tried, it's like, actually this does work, this makes a difference. It's like,
100%.
you then see that type of thing. Probably not a hand, I don't know about hand fighting, but probably something a little bit more technical, but it's that whole point of it. It's an ever-evolving game, and I can't just say that dismiss certain things straight away, and you can't dismiss certain jiu-jitsu techniques straight away. It's never going to work. You just never know, right?
No, and it does evolve, as you said, it does evolve, and different people with different styles, body types, and so it's just fucking a whole world of shit that we probably don't even know yet, or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Can I pause for the piss?
No.
Can I pause?
No.
I'm standing there like, boom. We break done. They let me out. They were going to try and keep me in.
Yeah.
I was sweating.
It's all right. He basically took us both down and pinned us both down. We had no choice. So it happened. I'm really intrigued about this. Obviously, you've got a bit of no-gi. Obviously, we've got a bit of gi in there, type of thing.
Yes.
Has sub-only ever... Have you ever done any sub-only at all? Or is it
No, I think, to be honest, the way the sport's going, I think it's going to involve into more of a big thing. I think at the minute, I'd say most clubs are like 30% no gi, the rest probably gi, maybe some are 50-50. I think eventually they'll, you know, the next couple of years they'll all start to transition to 50-50, and then maybe some will go the other way. I know some go totally gi and no gi. I just think it's a more fancier sport, should we call it, more exciting to see. I do feel like sub only for me would work, but my game, to be honest, is my whole tactic is to like slow the pace down, get on top, crush, if I could stum it down, crush, and then submit, you know. So I think that would work, but it'd be the time frame would be hard for me, because I'm still, you know, I'm 38 now. I think to learn fast submissions where, say, I'm spinning off for arm bars, or it's just not part, like I'm thinking about what game do I need for the next 10, 20 years. I need a slower game. I need a game that's going to be more controlled, protective, you know, a slow pace game. And I think sometimes the sub only can be a bit faster. I'd love to do one with no time limits, you know, because then I feel like it'd probably be more of my style of jiu-jitsu. But I think one where my sub game is not like, it's there when I get them tired.
Yeah.
That's my whole sort of thing is, I won't rush a sub, because I feel like if I rush a sub, there's a chance I'll miss it and I might end up in a vulnerable position, for example. So say if I'm on top, I won't spin around for an armbar to then them escape and then me be on the bottom. If I'm on top, I'm going to crush them for as long as I can. Then I'm going to try and finish the fight from on top. Like, I won't take a fast finish, which is sometimes boring for people to watch. It's just my style, and I think as I get older, and that's what I'm thinking about, is because, you know, if I develop a fast, explosive game now where I'm subbing people really quick, you know, I'm not going to do that when I'm 50. I'm not going to do that when I'm 60 or what. Yeah, so it's like, if I can do a game now that I can do for the next 20 years, it means that that game's going to get better over those 20 years. I haven't then got to get to 45 and think, oh, fuck, do you know what, that fast, flashy game that I've got, I can't no longer do it. I've got to re-change my game. And then what happens then is then you re-change your game, you're starting from the bottom. Your mat time with that game has to be sort of developed in a different direction. I want to think, well, I've spent 30 years developing this slow-paced game, which is efficient, works well, and I can keep doing this for as long as I need to.
That's interesting, because you probably see that, I don't know, as time goes, if you're going to post it, please do not put it in portrait, put it in portrait, please.
Portrait?
Yeah, because no one likes to turn their phone on reels or like on stories. Yeah, mate. Like,
just gotta look like you're chatting to yourself, just ignore me.
Tom's a cunt.
Just ignore me, not talking about it.
Yeah, we're still recording, aren't we? I can do this out, yeah.
Oh yeah, no, that's all recorded,
Yeah,
don't
that's
worry
fine.
about it. Yeah, I'll worry about that later.
It's fine. It's really interesting, because when you look at other individuals, I'd probably say that sub only seems the more flashy way to go.
Yes.
And I think in terms of the way we are with social media and like media coverage, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure you're aware, mate, that you go to an IBJJF event, unless you're hitting the highlight armbar or something like this.
Yeah, you're not seen.
You're not seen. You're just another number on their board type thing.
Yeah.
So it's...
And I do think for the sport to grow, it needs to be like that, because you need more eyes on it. So it needs to be more. But then, is that a game for the younger crowd coming through? Is that's what I think. I think for me, like, I'm realistic where I am. I'm, you know, close to 40 years old. So the flashy stuff for me is probably not going to be there. But can I win the worlds at IBJJF, a black belt? Maybe. Yeah. You know, but I think as the sport does evolve, it's going to be more of that stuff, because you're right, social media, that they want to see that stuff. And it's the same as, you know, MMA. It's exciting. It's the knockouts, you know, that you see. It's that's how the sport is going to get bigger. But it'll be interesting to see if those same individuals are playing the same game at 50. Do you know what I mean? Or are they playing different games at 50?
Yeah, no,
I don't know how it'll be and how it'll pan out. I'm just trying to think about longevity for me. And, you know, when I started this journey, realising, I spoke to Adam Wazinski last time I was down for a seminar. I didn't realise he's been training like 12 years. I was like, fuck, that is it, 12 years. Like, yeah, just about 12 years. And I was like, it makes sense what he's done though, because his whole game is to get to his game. So he hasn't thought about, oh, I need to master close guard, wrestling, footlocks, blah, blah. No, he needs to master butterfly guard. And then all of his game is to get to that guard. Then he spent 12 years mastering that one guard in competition, you know, and then that compounds, as I said before, with mat time. So for me, it's about doing my one game that works well for me and just spend time doing that, mastering it, keep going, trying to get better. And then eventually, you know, I might have a year where I'm like, oh, do you know what? I'm just going to try and sub everyone this year. But I know it's going to take a year and that'll take something away from my other part of my training and game. So maybe that's something that I do at the end of my competition career or something.
That's interesting. So would you say that social media could be slowing our games down?
Well, I think it's growing the sport, you know, which is, it's better for everyone when the sport's bigger because it means more youngsters are coming through and we're all here because we enjoy the sport. And I mean, and what it's done for us inside the gym is probably just as much as what it's done for us outside the gym. So I think the social media stuff is growing the sport, and I think the more it can grow, the bigger it gets, the more people the sport can help. I mean, I wish I'd found this when I was 18. I wouldn't have been such a little knob, probably. Well, maybe, I don't know. But I feel like it sort of gives you a lot of stuff, and the faster we can grow it with social media, you know, because as I said, I think that game of the sub only, fast pace, jumping around, cartwheel passing and all that kind of stuff is for a certain amount of people out there. But is that the younger generation? I don't know. I don't think it's for me though.
That's interesting.
Dad bod, slow, old.
Makes a difference.
I just try and crush him. That's
Have
all
you
I
seen
try
that
and do.
page? I think it's like Alpha Dad. Like,
Is it?
And he's like,
There's
how to
all
make sure
shredded.
He's not even shredded.
No.
He's like, he's jacked. He's in a good Alpha Dad. It's like,
He's this absolute monster.
Is
It's
he?
like when you see another dad across the street, he's like curling a bar or staring tense.
Well, he said,
Shit.
it's like when it's raining outside, get the kettlebells and start marching up and down barefoot with your top off type thing, just to exert dominance, just so everyone's aware. That's what it's class.
The more I see people do these, like carrying the logs and boats,
Oh,
they're just.
Oh, they're hilarious, aren't they?
Yeah.
I literally sit there. The algorithm on Instagram works so well. I'm just there, like, there's 1, 2, 3, and everyone, I'm just laughing, just like, yes, carry the logs, carry them out. It's great. I couldn't carry a log to save my fucking life, but it's fucking hilarious to watch. It's great.
Question I got for you then is, you were doing a lot of CrossFit beforehand.
Yes.
And from doing CrossFit myself and then coming into other sports, there's definitely a stigma around it, like, well, that's not going to be beneficial for you. Everyone gets injured in CrossFit.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong, I don't see Olympic snatches really helping your jiu-jitsu game. You could possibly argue it could strengthen some shoulders to some degree, but nothing major. What do you think there's going to be elements that are going to be useful?
I think so. I think there's nothing like, it depends, because when you start a white belt, the actual sessions of BJJ is going to just tank you anyway. So a normal session of it and sparring is going to tank you anyway. Is it the same as 100 thrusters? I don't know. I don't think, you don't get that sort of lung bleeding that I feel like you get from a workout of CrossFit. I did both at the same time, and at white belt I think that's a mistake, because I think they're both too intense.
Yeah.
I think as you progress through the belts, what normally happens, as we were talking about before, is your game will be simplified for whatever you play should start to narrow down and get more simple, and you just get better at it. You become efficient. So that's why sometimes you get like brown belts that might put on a bit of weight or whatever, because their game's so efficient now, they don't need to, they're not put in that red zone. And I think that's where you could do something like at the higher belts, is you could put in something like CrossFit or some kind of, I mean, now I'm doing interval training on the assault bike rower, because there's nothing, I don't think the jits sessions, even sparring, it's like you'll explode out for a little bit, and then you've got a little space there to rest. You'll explode, rest. Whereas if you've got like, I don't know, 100 calorie assault bike sprint, like that's going to kill you. That's going to kill you. And I think it's needed then. And I think as the sport's evolving, more emphasis is going to be tied to, okay, you've got the technique, but have you got the conditioning? Have you got the nutrition? Have you got all the other stuff that's going to have to be bolted on there as well? Because it's getting bigger. More numbers means more people are going to do it, and especially now there's more money in it. So I think, doing it at white belt, probably not a good idea. And if you're young and you can recover quick enough to do it, then yeah, you can do it. And if you've got a smart CrossFit coach or whatever, but sometimes the trouble is with CrossFit, as you turn up and it's just whatever workout they say it is, 100 pull-ups or whatever, and then you're going to go and do some kind of like spider guard after you've just done like 100, whatever it is, and your hands are wrecked, you can't even move.
Go do some rope climbs the day before doing some T-session. That's going to be fucking fantastic.
But I don't know, do you think the conditioning's as good?
I think it depends on, like I said, the gym that you go to.
Yeah.
I've had the joys, again, gym gypsy shock, going to multiple different CrossFit gyms. And there's certainly CrossFit gyms that very care about everything that's going on. Everything's planned specifically based on like structure. There's other CrossFit gyms where you can tell they've just gone on WODwell and gone like, we're doing this one today.
Yeah.
And there's no consideration. Now, I think with a CrossFit gym, depending obviously with the links you've got here, there's obviously a jiu-jitsu side to it.
Yes.
So they're going to try and take that into consideration, I would imagine, to some degree.
Yeah.
Whereas if you had a separate CrossFit gym and a separate jiu-jitsu gym, you're going to have to try and manage that yourself, which if you're a little bit naive to it and new to training and that type of thing, then that might be a bit of an issue.
Yeah, and even, it's not fair, even if I was to train somewhere, I can say, Ben, can you put the class for me? I'm doing this comp, you know what I mean?
Do you not know who I am? I'm kind of a big deal.
Can you change the whole program to fit my jiu-jitsu in? So he's never going to be jiu-jitsu focused. So I think, but chucking in some kind of like sprints or something in your training every now and again just keeps you on your toes. But then that's again going back to competing, and why I think it's so important to compete a lot is because sometimes we can say to ourselves, oh, well, I'm doing 3 sessions of jiu-jitsu this week, that's enough conditioning, that's enough strength. And then you do a competition and you go against someone that's doing the strength and conditioning and he just whips your ass and you're like, oh shit, maybe I do need to add some nutrition advice in there, some whatever advice in there.
Exactly. I'd probably say from all the CrossFit workouts, the one that's going to be most replicable for JITS is going to be something like an EMOM.
EMOM, or there's, is it Fight Gone Bad? That's not too bad of a one. I think EMOM's is good. Like, I think just the assault bike, I'll tell you what I think, if for full-time competitors, what is a go-to CV machine is the rower.
Really?
Yeah.
Over the assault bike?
Over the assault bike because of one reason, okay? We spend a lot of time in this position, yeah? So we're always tensing here, we're calling up, I'm on one side a lot or the other side, so, but when I'm rowing, I'm doing the other way. I'm coming outwards and I'm expanding a bit more. So I feel like I've made the mistake of wearing my front abs, hip flexors and all that is tight. And I feel like I've neglected sometimes my lower back and back stuff. I feel like if you mixed both of them together, assault bike's a winner as well for me. I'd use it every week. But if I had to pick one, I would pick, now do all my zone 2, so 40 minutes on the rower.
You could argue ski erg.
Skier as well, but then I do feel like you're here and it's still a crunch. Whereas I feel like rower, you're like extending back out. Whereas I don't feel like you do this much in jits. You're always doing this. Like here, and even the skier as well, you're pulling in, which is an exercise that you do anyway. But I think if you're full-time jiu-jitsu, like that's already strong. All this is already. It's where it gets weak is I think I'm not an expert with it by any means.
No,
but since
at the end of the day.
I've added this row in there, my back health, my lower back health has felt way, way, way better.
Yeah.
And I think it's because both sides of the core are balanced almost, if you know what I mean.
That's
the
an
back
interesting
of
point.
the spine, almost, if I could
It's
put it in simple world.
Trunk work, isn't it?
Yeah, trunk work, and I put Palaf holds in there. That's really keeping me more stable. Especially if you play guard on one side, you're going to get an imbalance somewhere, which is what I've got.
It's going to be jiu-jitsu guys at 80 years,
I'm
deformed.
literally like this when I walk around sometimes. People are like, you alright, man? I'm like, yeah, fine. Just
like
I'm shredded, mate.
this one side.
Or just hunchback and knocks you
And
down.
it's honestly, it's bad. you joke, but honestly, that's the way I've been walking around. Because you think, as I said before, I'm doing 5-6 hours a day and I'm in this position. This. And
You don't look normal. Let me lie down quickly.
Oh,
You look normal now.
Well, even this hip.
Make sure you get me on my good side.
Even this hip is like, when I was in my physio, was like, mate, this hip is like really good at like pulling in, but it doesn't move. And I'm like, this is the one that I'm always on. And this is the leg that always is like wide and turns and does everything else in my half guard, but this is the one that's on the floor all the time. So I was spending 4 or 5 hours a day. It's like being pressed against the wall for 4 or 5 hours a day and then exercising anything that's here, but nothing that's on this way. So you've got to, if you're full time, I feel like those imbalances is a matter of time before they come out. you know, depending on your game as well. Like if you've got a different kind of style of game, then maybe those balances won't show. But I think we all tend to play one side or the other. Balancing like that, it can be difficult. So is this your full-time job, Jits?
So my full-time job is
nutritionist, and then you do a lot of jiu-jitsu on the side, or?
As in what? As in working with different jiu-jitsu
No,
people,
just like training-wise.
Yeah, so I train. Obviously, I'm a bit injury prone at the moment. Ended up spraining my ankle 10 weeks ago. That was just doing some flow rolling wrestling. It's flow wrestling in the warm-up to an open mat before a podcast, and ended up just ranking it, and I was like, Jesus Christ, this is painful. Trying to work through it, which is fine. And then 4 weeks ago, before the North Somerset Open in Western Supermare, did an extreme dog walk, and just walking the dog, pothole, ankle went again in the morning of a comp, and I was like, you're fucking kidding me.
The thing is, when your ankle goes, it's not like, oh, my ankle's sore. Your ankle
it's been a cankle
blew up to the size of, I'd probably say, a really overgrown tennis ball.
Yeah.
It was bad.
It's still slightly swollen now. It's an absolute nightmare, but that happened.
Always the same side, or
yes, it's always the same ankle.
So it'd be some kind of weakness issue there.
Just your ankle, mate.
I can chop it off and no one can heel hurt me. Hey. I'll be there like Gordon Ryan, like holding my leg in front of them. Like, what are you going to do now, but again, I'm doing some rehab stuff on that at the moment. Okay. I've got an S&C guy, obviously, shout out to Brotherhood Performance. They're doing really well up there.
Nice.
But again, it's definitely learning from my own background, a bit of bodybuilding, a bit of CrossFit. You're thinking like, oh, I know a lot about this. This is fine. And then they start chucking in some different moves, and you're like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck is this thing?
Yeah.
And I was like, what have we started doing recently? Reverse squats. So laying flat on your back, keep the band nice and taut, and then bringing your knees to your chest, basically.
Nice.
And it's basically reminding me of like a dead bug, but your hip hinges are going like absolutely nuts at the same time. And I'm like, what the fuck is this torture? But I'm like, again, doing some neck stuff. I'm like, why have I got a crazy neck pump right now? This is fucking really weird. And then everyone's looking at you because you're holding like a plate on your forehead type thing. And you're like,
what the fuck is this?
What the fuck is this? And then he goes, does some zone 2 stuff for an hour and goes like, what the fuck is this guy even doing? Just is he a mosh pitter maybe? Just like, bomb on his head type thing and just doing some zone 2 stuff. But it opens your eyes to say that this is all tailored towards the sport that we love, and we have to try and obviously understand how to approach it, because this isn't bodybuilding, this isn't CrossFit, it's completely unique. And there will be some things I'll interloop with it, but I think the biggest thing I'd probably say to any listener or viewer right now is that there is a special niche for this, in the sense that there are going to be certain needs that are going to need to be met. And
I think so.
It needs to be treated as a separate sport rather than it being like, oh, this is similar to MMA. It's like, well, there are some similarities, but it's still different.
Oh,
right?
100%.
You've never seen an MMA guy, for example, weigh in and then walk straight into the cage.
No way.
There's no chance in hell. Even on the amateur circuit, they still give them at least 4 or 5 hours before that's even going to happen, type thing.
So could you specialise towards BJJ nutrition? I suppose that's when you sort of tell them about the weight cuts and stuff.
Exactly, because the sport is evolving, especially when you look at the sub-only circuit. That's the question for it, is that they've got day before weigh-ins with some of them, which makes things a lot more easier. But even then, there's some mistakes that are being made
100%.
massively, because you speak to some people on the MMA scene who've been doing it for 30 odd years or something like this. They're still doing absolutely barbaric stuff. You're
crazy
like,
cuts.
What are you doing? Oh, start taking a load of vitamin C to then make sure you're urinating more. I'm like, no, that doesn't work like that.
No.
So again, the idea being is that it's trying to stop a load of different things getting into there. And as I kind of mentioned, you guys aren't taught anything, right? And they shouldn't have that expectation. It's like I said, you're not a dermatologist. But for some reason, everyone treats you like that.
What should I do for my water cut?
What should I do with this and that type of thing? And the thing is that they'll get their information from elsewhere, because we have this social media platform. It's like, oh, this guy does this water cut and he water loads for 2 weeks prior. I'm like, you don't need to be doing that. Like, you're just literally making yourself help for no reason. And so we started obviously doing this to try and speak to obviously people like yourself, not to point the finger like you're an idiot, why are you doing this type of thing, but understand about experiences. The guy on the last podcast we put up a content today said, I asked him, and I'll ask you the same question, any sort of fad diets he's done, and he said, drinking a can of Coke every day was to blitz the belly fat around his abs type thing. And Mark's absolutely shredded, but he said he did it for 2 months or 3 months every day, can of Coke,
no way.
He read it from a magazine.
I love him so much. He has got to be the most militant person when it comes to food. Jay tells him, go and
find a northeasterly wind.
A northeasterly wind with one leg above your head, and he goes, Dan, let's go.
He does it.
But he is a huge unit. And
I think I've seen him before. I think I've met him as
he
well.
got a big grapple fight. Well, he'd done
Yeah.
some Europeans. He had a bit of a frustrating Dublin trip where his opponent refused to step on the mat.
Really?
Yeah.
Saw him first.
Yeah.
And then
saw
said
him
no.
back and went,
Fuck
I'm
off.
not competing.
I joked to him, I said, mate, did you have your top on? And he was like, yeah, I did, and he still wouldn't come on. I was like, fuck's sake.
I'm done. I'm beast. That's class.
Can you imagine going to Europeans, you train all that time, seeing your opponent going, fuck that. You just give it a go, wouldn't
What's
you?
your
Go,
coach going to
"Fuck
say?
it,
Nah, look at the size of him. Your coach is like, yeah, no, mate, don't get on the mat.
So, question to you then, mate. Any fad diets that you've done previously?
So, yeah, the old intermittent fasting diet, which I did
Yeah.
at sort of white belt and blue belt, which was beginning of the blue belts, which just literally killed my training. I do think, as I said before, that stupidly training, hungry and tired made my game maybe a bit more efficient after a year of getting smashed. But
was that just the intermittent fasting? Was that, obviously there's a couple of camps of that. One we've got is for managing weight. The other one is for sort of information purposes, and people believe at certain times.
Mine was like, you know, you've heard all the benefits about longevity, and also it was just a time issue. I was getting up early to train, so like, and then I wasn't like. Sometimes I'll get to the gym like this morning at 6 in, you know, and I haven't stopped yet all day. But then where's the time for the meals, you know, in between that? But now I know I need to take, like, I'll take a flask of oats, and I'm drinking oats with like chia seeds in it throughout the day with protein in it.
Too,
Yeah, like, I've got like raw eggs and I'm just smashing people and I'm beetroot shakes and all sorts of stuff. But I know that I need that fuel throughout, because I feel like it's like almost like a snowball going downhill. Like, I could feel good on day 1, day 2, maybe even for a week or 2, and then before I know it, I'm getting colds all the time, or I'll get a niggle in my knee, or my joints are just feeling more inflamed, or...
So that's a good question. How do you keep consistent? Because, as you mentioned, day 2, week 3 is when things start to tail off all of a sudden, and it's probably quite transparent for a few of our listeners and viewers that Monday to Friday, the diet's great. Weekend comes and goes all out the fucking window. Now, I appreciate with you, you're a full-time competitor, so you probably got a bit more focus, but any tricks of the trade that you do to keep more consistent?
You'll be surprised that weekends is takeaway time for me. It's literally takeaway time, because I feel like, you know, it's in the week, it's the same thing that I eat. It's like my shakes that are made, and I make 2 a day, and my food's pretty boring, and it's always like leftovers from the day before, which is always some kind of meat, some kind of carb and veg with some fats in there. It's always the same. But then on the weekend, I'm like, right, it's time for me to have a bit of Coke, it's time for me to have a takeaway, and it's time for me to enjoy the food a little bit. I found out when I first started to do too much dieting too quick, I was shredded, but you burn out so fast. You just get to that stage where you're like, oh, this is fucking doing my head in. And then you end up taking like 2 weeks off of dieting and just thinking, fuck, I'm not going to diet. Whereas I felt like if you can keep Monday to Friday pretty good, standard probably with most people, roast or something on a Sunday or whatever it'll be, takeaway on a Friday night. And then, to be honest, because I train quite a lot now, I don't really get hungry when I'm not training. So like on a Saturday or Sunday, I could get up and not have like brunch or whatever till about 11. It can be a fry up, and then again maybe I'll have some kind of meal or whatever that's a bit shitty on a Saturday night. But I'm not like ploughing loads of food in over the weekend, and I'm not saying to myself, you can't have that, you can't have this, because I feel like you've got to enjoy it as well. You've got to enjoy it. It's fucking so long, and so fucking this jiu-jitsu journey or whatever, even fitness in general, is so long. You're gonna have to do it forever. If you're fucking miserable, what's the point? You've been miserable forever. You may as well try and give you these little pit stops and breaks where you can just eat what the fuck you want. If you want an ice cream, have an ice cream. But just I stick to 80-20. If you can get 80% of the time right, 20% of the time you're eating shit, I felt like that's just way more effective of going for the long term. I mean, I don't know, you know, athletes are out there probably thinking, fucking hell, you know, he's not taking it serious, but...
How are you going to topple Gordon?
Yeah, so I'm not after him, fuck that. You know, I just don't feel like... And also got family and kids and stuff. I want to go out with them and do stuff and fucking have food with them and not be like, oh, I can't eat this week or whatever. So I think giving yourself those treat days is important. That's the trick of the trade. Yeah. Like stuff, little simple things like putting the biscuit jar where it's not like... I stayed at my missus' parents' house for a while, and every time I went to get a cup of tea or coffee out, I'd open the drawer and the biscuit jar was like there in my face with all these chocolates next to it. And you know, they all smash through that weekly. But I was like, now in my house the biscuit jar is like up and away somewhere,
Yeah.
where like it's just not in my sight. So if anything that's in my sight is like fruit or something else, and because I do meal prep, it's like I don't like to waste food, so I'm like, oh, I'll just eat that, it's already made. So stuff like that, keeping stuff away and just a bit harder to reach. You'll be surprised how many fucking less biscuits you eat if you put that biscuit jar just up the top shelf somewhere.
It's interesting. You give a barrier of resistance to stuff. So I use this example, right, when people go like, oh, I can't be bothered to weigh my food, right? And I was saying the reason we're doing this to begin with is a complete novice. I'm like, you need to understand what the fuck you're eating.
Yeah.
Me and you can have a guess as to how much this peanut butter weighs here, right? You could be spot on, I could be miles off type thing, and based on your experience and knowledge, right? And I said, if I got your toothbrush, right, and I chucked it out the window, I'm giving you a massive barrier of resistance for you to brush your teeth either in the morning or at night, right? Keep the scales out, right? Don't put them in the back of the fucking cupboard.
No.
Like, get them out in front of you.
Yeah, they're there. You see them every day.
Exactly.
You've got to step over
and it's vice
them,
versa with the food groups. Like, my wife is a biscuit queen, as she's from there, right? And so we've got a pack of chocolate digestives which we try and save for the weekend. But she's not as tall as me, so I end up putting them on the top shelf really far away so she can't grab them. And then all of a sudden she's like, where do these come from? I might have kept them safe because I know if I do them there from Monday when we do the food shop, they'll be gone by Wednesday.
Yeah, they're gone. They're gone. Like shit. They're gone again.
But it keeps things consistent with that. But that's interesting to hear. One other question I've got is obviously we get...
Sorry, someone's knocking the door there.
How dare they?
Biscuits.
No, it's fine.
Made me hungry.
The other question I've got is we get some listeners and viewers and inquiries that want to put on weight.
Yes.
Right. And the hard thing for them, again, is being consistent and also getting used to the higher food volume. From what you said to me, you've got a few shakes in there and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right. Did that take a bit of time of adjustment to it?
It does, yeah. And even I have a flask of oats now, and that is like sometimes hard for me to drink. And if I feel like if you're training hard, actually eating a lot of food is quite difficult sometimes. Sometimes I sit down and it's like the meal takes me about an hour to eat. But just doing it slowly, I think that's the best way. So when you're first having a shake, you're just having like milk and protein, for example. Then after like a week or 2 weeks, you put in half a banana. And then maybe, an avocado, and then build it up slowly, because I do think if you go from eating nothing to a lot, your body just feels sick, you get bored of it, and again, you're going to burn out. So like putting that in there slowly, I think is a much better position to be in. Yeah.
One final sponsor shout out to the team at Inner Chimp. Inner Chimp is a brand name that really speaks to grapplers and fighters, one we can believe and relate to on a personal level. Inner Chimp is simply catchy, right? And with small tweaks can be your general gym wear and casual wear and rash guards like this for men, women and children. Inner Chimp is ethically produced and has turned down cheaper production overseas to ensure this. Understanding we only have one Earth, right, which we need to look after. This is at the forefront of their production decisions, and we want you, our listeners and viewers, to have a sense of accomplishment in knowing that you are doing your part when buying their products. Inner Chimp tees are 100% organic cotton. Their packaging, 80% recycled cardboard, and all of their products are designed to last. Their production and manufacturing is in the UK, trying and aiming to be as eco-friendly as possible, leaving close to zero global footprint. But to put it simply, Inner Chimp has a massive passion for the sport, attention to detail, and our planet in mind, and always at the forefront of your own Inner Chimp. Go check out their website, www.inner-chimp.co.uk, or go check out their Instagram at inner_chimp. Thank you for your time.
And I think, majority of people, I feel like in jits would be better off putting on a bit of weight.
Yeah.
Because it's just protects your joints and that kind of stuff. I mean, I know there's different circumstances with different people. But I love going into competition knowing I've got 2 kilos to put on that week. I'm going to have my creatine that week. I'm going to have all my sort of drinks that I'm going to have to drink and all that. And I go into that competition, everything's full. I can just feel like everything's full of glycogen and I'm ready to go, it's much more of and there's no internal battle with those scales, which is like a massive fucking pain in the ass.
Nutritionist doesn't make weight, it's what goes away. That's the other one. But then, like I said, I care much about the clients that I feel like I'm representing them.
I mean, what weight do you compete at then anyway?
Super heavy.
Super heavy, so under 100.
Yeah,
is
under 97 I think
97,
it is
nice.
in Noogie, and then under 100.4.
What do you walk around as normally?
95.
Yes, that's cool then.
It's a bit more trickier. I've not to use this as an excuse, but being type 1, for example, if my sugars go low, I can't be like, well, that's too many calories.
You've got to have something.
Got to have something. So It took a little while to get used to it, so I've put on a little bit more weight over time, but nothing major. And then eventually speaking to Mark about it, because again, he used to float between like light, is it light heavy? I think it is, or heavy and super heavy all the time. Never would go into the ultras because we were all kind of the agreements that you don't know what the fuck's going to
happen. Who's going to be there?
I think one of our friends who normally fights in the ultras, big guy, shout out to Lee, and he went to one of the competitions and he had basically an ex-pro rugby league player turn up. Who was the same, small, like taller than him, as jacked and as athletic, and he said he felt like a child. And it's just like, you just don't know. Like I'd rather not have that. But back to the point of eating for more food volume and stuff. But you're very much right in the sense I feel there's an element, and this is not to sound hippy-dippy of retraining the gut, but getting used to eating that food volume. It takes a little while to get used to the
100%. I would say it takes a good few weeks to sort of build up to that. If you go in hard straight away, as I said before, when my nutritionist showed me the carbs, well, he told me the amount of carbs and I cut the amount of carbs. I was like, what the fuck is this? How am I going to eat all this? You know, but then slowly break it down in 6 portions and slowly get it in there.
Use the liquid carbs, that type of thing, build it up and stuff. And that's the other misconception that people have with liquid carbs is that, oh, you shouldn't touch this. This is full of sugar. And it's it depends on the context of the person you're speaking to, right? If
100%.
I've got, shout out Fat Trev, right?
Is that a client of yours, is it? Shredded?
No, Fat Trev came from another podcast. Fat Trev.
We're going to make a t-shirt, we have to.
You have to watch all the other ones to get it's a long story.
But
Fat Trev, obviously, who's overweight and stuff, he does not need to be touching full sugar drinks.
No, that's true.
But for someone like yourself who's training 3 or 4 times a day, you're going to need to get those liquid carbohydrates 100%. In there from the sake of Lucozade Sport. I always like to refer to Matt Fraser. Did you hear his Joe Rogan podcast?
No, I don't think I've done that one yet.
His post-workout routine was a full fat can of Coke and bar, and that's all he used to have. And I was like, he used to say, laugh at everyone else like weighing out their sugar.
I need this. And he's like, no, you need the calories.
And that's this misconception.
Well, it's crazy. It's like Dan Strauss was saying at one point, what he was doing with his weight cut was he would stand on the scale and he'd have a glass of water. With a glass of water, how much do I weigh? Right, it's too much. A bit of water out. Drinking too much, a little bit out. Right, okay, there we go. And water went from a cup to like a scoop. He's like, there we go. To make weight.
No, miserable life as well.
But nothing against Dan. But this is the thing. Like when we look at the top level and what we're hearing from them, I'm like, why is no one talking about this? Like again, there's not as if, like I said, let's be honest, you can become a purple belt, you can go and open up a school.
Yes, it's true.
Right.
It's true.
And we talk about the gyms that are giving out fucking belts like candy all of a sudden. What the fuck is going to come out from there? Do you know what I mean? Like, what it takes is them to get pissed off with their instructor. I'm opening up my own school, fuck you. Right? And a bit of like entrepreneurial, and it's like, what the fuck have they learned?
I think you're just lucky that some of these people in the public eye, you know, like Dan Strauss and yourself and that, you have the mindset of, I need to look into this, I need to get some help. Like, you know, you have the ability to have that introspective thought go, this isn't quite, I need to learn more about this. And then go away, come back, and you see the results, and you go, cool. Now I suggest that everyone do the same thing. Go look, go help.
Go and find.
It's that humility side of things.
Yeah.
Like, this is Anthony Crocker, who we spoke about, he's mentioned about it, that there's just too many people out there who just want to be pros at stuff, and it's just like...
I know best. This has come to me for this, I know the best. It's not true.
And unfortunately, obviously, there's a lot of people who shift 5 kilograms in their life and think all of a sudden they know everything about dieting, and it's like, you don't. I have to put it bluntly. But,
and it's different for everyone as well, isn't it? It's, it's
massively.
individual. Like some people, as you said, do need to lose, and some people need to gain, and then...
But also the approach you take with it. It's the same. I try and revert back to things with jiu-jitsu in the sense of like, okay, you may go to a leg lock heavy gym, right? That doesn't suit you, right? Doesn't mean that should be the only style you should ever learn type thing. You should go and like try different things. It's about finding different approaches with stuff. And most of the time we try and take a personal approach that if you've got family and kids, I don't want dad having a separate meal to them to some degree.
No.
Like,
you got to have the same.
There'd be certain meals which you have control over, but dinner time, I don't want like your son's type thing looking at you and going, why is dad having a separate meal?
He's having just broccoli sandwich or something.
What the fuck's that all about type thing? Because what's that question's going to come up in the future type thing? So 100%. Put it all in perspective. Should we move on to questions then? Unless there's anything else you want to add?
I don't think so. No, I think we've covered quite a long way.
Yeah. We're going to start asking the questions then. I'll come and sit next to you because at least then I don't have to fucking shout from where I am. No, sorry, I'm not on camera where I am.
I'll tell you otherwise. Oh, boo.
I'm not stupid. I got this angle down, man.
Put it here. Point at you.
I'm loud enough now, mate. It's fine. Hello, Ricky.
Hello.
So we kind of run through some standard questions on the podcast, and we kind of touched a little bit on them. But some of the other ones we've gone for, ones we haven't cleared off yet. So you're quite big in competition. Tell us about your post-comp meal.
Post-comp meal, so...
That's just 2 gold.
Well, yeah, okay, bum. So if I'm away, then I'm going to have something in a restaurant. If I'm driving, normally it's like a Burger King. I'm like, right, where's the biggest Burger King?
What's the order?
Oh, I don't know what it is even from there now. Is it like a Whopper, double Whopper or something like that they do there? Double Whopper. That's the one I'm going to have, just because I'm on the road anyway. I'm driving, I'm like, right, this is dirtiest meal that I can think of. I'm going to smash it as a proper treat. If I'm away though in a restaurant, I love steak, I love any kind of things like that, so normally a good, decent steak. Yeah, that's a decent meal for me.
Pretty common, I think. Everyone goes like, fast food route. 100%.
Yeah.
I've worked for this. Yeah. That's good. Any unpopular jiu-jitsu opinions that you have?
Oh, unpopular jiu-jitsu
Anything?
opinions.
Fire away. We've had some belting.
Let me have a think. I'm not sure about the belt system. I don't know, because I do think that maybe it should be a different belt. I don't know if it's unpopular or not, or if more people are coming around to this opinion, but a competitive belt maybe, and then a novice belt, or whatever you'd call it. I don't think you'd call it a novice belt, maybe hobbyist belt, but giving it a different name. Because it's some people sometimes when they get promoted, they're always like, oh, I don't feel like I deserve this. That person's coming and smashing me, blah, blah, blah. But then I'm like, yeah, but he's training full time and whatever, lifting this and doing that, and you've got 5 kids and you're running around trying to run a business, and like it's different. So I think sometimes, I don't know the belt system, but then the belt system does keep you in check as well. It keeps everyone sort of accountable, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't know, so I think maybe it's the belt system.
I don't think it's unpopular. I think that's probably quite common.
I think that's quite common.
Yeah.
I think it's a conversation that's definitely come up a few different times of sort of having a pro league.
Yeah.
Right, in the sense that you know what you're signing up for.
Yeah.
In the sense that I'm not going to go and feel bad about smashing some 17-year-old type of thing.
It's true.
But I know it's
whatever,
a pro league all of a sudden, and it makes me then think. It also leads to the argument, which I know we haven't really touched on much, about the pro league then would have to require you to submit a testing procedure.
Nice.
To then say, right, like boxing, you can't box without your head scan.
Yes.
Yeah, you can't. And it's likewise having that pro league within jiu-jitsu that you know, as a competitor, you want to go up against best of the best. Yeah. So you know what you're signing up for. Yeah. And obviously, again, there's no like, oh, he's being harsh to that person, snap that person's arm. It's like, well, you know,
you're in the pro league.
You're in the pro league. And then you've got the testing procedure within it, right? Which means that you can't go into the pro league without having those tests done.
Yeah, nice.
And it cuts into that. But I don't know, is there enough pro league status people out there in the UK?
It's probably not. And it's probably a thing that's growing. It just does, even for me, someone that competes at Masters, it sometimes feels like, especially the UK, I'm going against guys that have like got kids and families and businesses, and they're like, you know, they're training 4 hours a week, and I'm like, training how many hours a week, and I'm
just
like,
pacing up and down, staring up at them like
So I think, you know, you can see that unfairness there sometimes, especially in the different leagues. Yeah, it is there.
I think there are certain places, obviously competing in Abu Dhabi yourself. I know the AJP, you have to win points.
To enter into certain ones.
So in line with that, pro league, maybe someone entity with bags of money. Not looking at you directly for that, but just I saw the gold then, like, oh shit.
I got money.
I don't have bags of money.
Pay this man money, he'll get a pro comp now. But like, there could almost be that kind of entry level of, you need to have been able to have competed at these levels, so we know that you're here, and then you get your pro blue belt.
Look at the games, for example. Like the games have that qualifying, obviously, procedure to it, right? And it's then kind of saying, right, they've also then got pro competitions. So if they fancied obviously doing to, I don't know, Strength and Depth Europe, right, for example, you're going to have your big names turn up, but you are at your local CrossFit gym, you're not going to be going up against Pat Vellner, for example.
Getting smashed.
And getting smashed. Like, why is he 20 minutes faster than me? And it's just like, well, there's a reason why there's a pro level to this type of thing.
It's true.
I think belt level, that's going to be difficult. But there is pro competitions, like the English.
English Open have got a pro level. We can find.
And ended up going against Seamus
there is pro leagues out there. It's more, I think, where the issue comes, which I don't know how you solve it. I just think it's there. Is like sometimes you'll give a blue belt out to somebody or a blue belt to someone else, and it's or even a purple belt, brown belt. But then I know sometimes that one blue belt or whatever who's got there is thinking, oh, I don't deserve this because I'm getting smashed by this person or whatever. Yeah, which is like, you know, so it's hard to, how do you say to them, look,
how do you quantify it?
Yeah, this is not like, it means the same thing. I know you're at different stages of your game and life or whatever, but it's so I think that needs to change. I think the pro leagues they're there all about. With even the Worlds, you've got to score points for the Worlds and stuff like that. But it's more, how do you solve the issue of a blue belt for but then it's like saying, I can't say this is a blue belt, but it's a novice one.
Yeah.
You know, and then this is a pro one for you. And you're like, you fucking bastard. Why didn't I get the pro one? I've been here as much.
If I then leg lock and break his ankle, am I then pro?
Oh, you're then the pro.
Guess what? I take your belt from you.
Oh, that'd be hilarious. Imagine that.
That's why I don't know if the belt system.
But then does that help with the stripe system?
Yeah. I just think.
Do you look at kids' jiu-jitsu, for example? They've got multiple different belts within it, type of thing.
I just don't think, like, do we need the belts anymore? Like, do we need, but then I think it does help you accountable, because when you do get that blue belt, you know, you're scared of the white belts that are coming up behind you, and then when you get the purple belt, you're scared of the blue belts that are coming up behind, and it forces you to adapt your game, and then it holds even the black belts responsible. Because you can't have, you're a black belt now, you can't have the purple belt, whatever, it's going to happen times, but you don't want that purple belt to be catching you up
all over you.
Yeah, so it's a difficult one to solve, but I feel like it's an issue there, and something that, and I don't know how you even solve it, but it's something I think.
Make everyone black belt, there we go.
Yeah, boom.
Make everyone black belt.
Everyone's a black belt.
Black belt, here you go, yeah, I like that. Another one we have is one we got from one of our podcasts, but we kind of kept it in now, is what is a failure that you cherish the most?
The most.
Anything stand out that constantly burns in your brain to make you
Rent
strive
free.
and get better?
To be honest, I've failed so many times that it's just like, it's part of it now. I feel like that's part of the reason why I compete so much, is because it's just a failure. I mean, every failure fucking stinks for me and hurts. So the last one, when was the last competed? Silver at the British adult. Most people are like, you got silver at the British, well done, but I'm still like, fucking hell, adult, and it still pissed me off a little bit. And then before that, I lost like 17-0 at a competition because I feel like I wasn't ready. So I think these failures have been there all the time, and I think, you know, looking back, I had that at every belt. I just can't remember them now as much. I can remember the wins, Europeans or whatever, but looking, I can't see those failures. I think it's just important. None that really stick out. None that really stick out.
Is there any that you've done in competition that has then changed your game after?
Oh, 100%.
Oh, I need to change my game.
Yeah. So, and I think it's always the same approach, I feel, is like, you get to blue belt and you're like, well, I need more wrestling. I need more takedown stuff. I need to be better at footlocks. It seems like everyone goes through the same thought process. That when they go through. So I think, you know, looking back, I think when I started to lose at purple belt is because I was trying to do new things through blue belt a lot. I was trying to get better at judo, and then I was getting better at wrestling. But then what I forgot was I'm a guard player. This isn't, you know, I'm like, why am I trying to? Why am I trying to do all these things to improve this when I'm best at this position in guard? Why am I not just trying to get to this position in guard? So I think around about then is when I started to realise, just stop fucking around wrestling, because sometimes you get someone that's an MMA fighter who's a blue belt, but he's done MMA grappling and for fucking 10 years, and then I've done 10 no-gi stand-up like lessons and think, I'm going to stand with this guy and win. No, he's going to smash you.
It's the same thing as we had the conversation in the car. It's like the Bruce Lee thing of everything that's useless, don't worry about it. That's useful, keep hold of it. You know, like you can gain quite a bit from doing no-gi. If you're mainly doing gi, you're not going to practice catching collar ties.
No. It's not going to matter as much.
Really do anything because you get a collar tie, someone's going to get it behind your.
I do it all the time.
Hang on, this is a bit weird. You know, you can't 2-on-1 a collar tie behind you. You can 2-on-1 a gi grip.
I just double lapel grab and slam their face into the floor. No, it's fine.
Really?
Yeah, you can do it. It's fine.
Bit of a weird one. That
it was.
I think the you know, it evolves by itself just naturally as well. I feel like if you try to, but then you need those failures to highlight that. You need to be like, okay, well, I'm not a fucking wrestler. Why am I trying to wrestle? I'm not a stand-up guy. I'm not a footlocker. Why am I trying to foot like everyone? Because I'm leaving my own feet vulnerable. But then I think, you know, what happens naturally if we go is eventually your game will start expanding into those areas anyway. Yeah. And you'll naturally start to clip them onto your game as your game evolves and it gets bigger. But you just have to give it time. That's what everyone I think misses, is that time base.
Question for you. With your, is it scholarship? Is that the best way
Yes.
to describe it?
Yeah.
Did you have much animosity from your peers?
Yeah. So...
And I'd probably say less like the banter type of thing, like, or anything like that, but actual...
I don't feel like no one would be rude to my face probably, and not because I'm fucking hard or anything, just because people in general are not. That's like...
Nice. That's what you said earlier. He was on that pee break, he was like, I'm going to the toilet, fuck you both. And he was like, yeah, it's alright, I'm fine now.
That's it. Yeah, I don't think people naturally are not going to be... but, you know, I'm in such a privileged position, and it's not only because of Army Sports that have given me this scholarship, because a lot of people are on the same scholarship as me, but their units won't give them the time. I'm lucky enough to be placed into an infantry battalion, you know, and the Rifles in general, they support sports, they try and push out sports as much as they can, and they've got a lot of people there as well, so they can spare some people sometimes. Some units like Marines or whatever, they can't give away people, but I do think, you know, there's no animosity there that's in the like face to face, but I do feel like some people resent it a little bit, I suppose. But
is that phrase that I'm sure you may have heard before, like, must be lucky, right?
Yes, yeah,
right.
I get that all the time. Like, oh, you're lucky to be on this, but what they don't see is I'm gonna get up at 5 every morning. I haven't been on. I recently went on a holiday with my family. But that's the first holiday that I've been on in sort of 5 years. And people are like, well, what do you mean? You're on leave all the time. I'm like, I'm not on leave. Like, even when I'm going to Vegas next 4 weeks, I'm going to be in Vegas and I know exactly what I'm going to do. And I'm going to be in the room.
In that crabs table.
Yeah, just, I wish. Please have the Wi-Fi. This is the general sort of persona, is that, you're going to Vegas, you're just training all the time, it's amazing. But they don't see me, well, no, I've got to pay for my own physio to get sports massages. I've got to turn down promotions, I've got to pay to train in different facilities. I've got a lot of sacrifice, and not only me sacrificing it, but like I haven't gone on family my holiday, so I haven't gone on holiday with my family for 5 years, so they're sacrificing as well. So it's not only me that sacrifices, it's them. So it's that side of things, and I know people, like, I've been on this for so long that there's a reason I've been on it for so long, because some people get put on it for a year and they'll be like, wow, I've got a year. I haven't got my boss that's always, you know, there saying, this is what you need to do. You know, don't get me wrong, he phones me up, gives me support, tells me where I need to be at what time. But I know some people, they would sleep in. Oh, I'm just going to do the 10 o'clock session today. Oh, well, my friend's doing this. I'm going to get a part-time job doing this instead to earn a bit of money or to support. Well, then you focus on building the skills. You know, there's a reason why I'm doing so much social media and all that kind of stuff. You know, that takes time and effort, as you boys know. Because that tells people in the Army, this is what I'm doing, this is what the Army are paying for me to do. You know, a recruitment drive, almost, you can see it as. So, is there expectations for you to do the social media? No, not at all. So that's off your own back? That's off my own back, but I understand that, you know, the better I can promote myself and what I'm doing for the Army, the more likely they would say to me next year, you're going again, well done for last year. So, I think one of the questions we did have come through on Instagram was about the ability to train jits whilst being in the Army. Yes. Is that easily done or not really? Well, it is. So if I go back and just tell you about my story. So as a white belt, I trained, but I had a full-time job as a PTI, as a physical training instructor. So I'd do my normal day and I would train in the mornings. When I say normal day, especially for an infantry battalion, you do phys in the morning, which is some kind of circuit. Then you'll do maybe a lesson. You'll have like a big 2-hour lunch break, and then you do maybe a lesson in the afternoon. So it's a pretty relaxed day, and then the evenings are free because you're away from home or whatever. So a normal day, and I'll train around that day either early in the morning or lunch breaks or after work, because as I said, I was away from home with the guys and girls, so I'll just train with them. Did that for 2 years before any scholarship were talked about. Then I approached my boss said to him, look, I'm doing this, I've just won the Europeans, what do you think? Is there any chance I can get a sports scholarship? He said, no, not at this time, but what we can do is we can give you a job where you're at home from Monday to Friday. You have to work in an office, but you're at home Monday to Friday. So then I would be just consistency of training then for 2 years, which is massive, because sometimes in the army you'll get to unit, you'll train for 3 or 4 weeks because you'll be back in the unit, then you'll get sent off somewhere for a month or 2, and then you're coming home, train, and then you get sent off. So a consistency of training. But in that 4-year period, then I won another big title, and they were like, okay, now you're getting good enough for us to maybe offer you elite sports status, but this is what it involves. So it took a lot of planning. It took me, that's 4 years in the making just to get to that stage before I started the scholarship. And then, you know, I've still got to think about next year and what's going to happen next year and whatever.
There's a question I was going to have, like, from what I've seen the British Army put out about the scholarship, it's highly sought after. You don't just roll out of bed and go, I'm going to apply for this, pass test and do it. Is it like a requirement for you have to not be seen to be winning, but be seen to be active within that sport to continue to get onto that?
Yeah,
How
definitely.
do you keep it like kind of rolling? Well,
just like what I'm doing, like I'm doing the social media stuff all the time. I'm competing all the time, which means that there's times I'm losing, but then a lot of times I'm winning as well. And especially when you go into the big ones at Masters, when I'm when I'm in Abu Dhabi Worlds and I'm holding the rifles flag, that's massive for their Twitter and all that kind of stuff. They push all that out. So it's about, I need to be consistently winning if possible, but I'm realistic. Sometimes at the beginning of the year, I know I'm not going to win much, so maybe I'm doing all the local comps, trying to win as much as I can, putting the Army name out there. Then at the end of that year, I've got the Europeans coming up, I'm going to try and win the Europeans. So it's hard to stay on and maintain and stuff, but it's hard to get on there as well, so it is sought after. But it's, you know, I've found from different units supported, because, you know, if you're, say you're a chef and you're assigned to a unit, your job is the chef of that whole unit, so they can't say to you, oh, you've just won this, you can disappear for a year and do this kind of scholarship. They're going to say, sorry, you know, we'll try and support you when we can, but you've got a job role or whatever. Infantry job roles, you know, infantry required, still busy, still heavily manned units, but there's a bit more scope to say, oh, we can release you for a little bit to do this, we don't need you for this or whatever training exercise.
It's like you said about that sacrifice point. It's kind of like the more like indisposable you make yourself, the harder it is to get onto the program.
It is, unfortunately, it's harder to get, and I know that's not for all, but I found, because sometimes the truth is a year is not long enough, especially in something like jits. Like, how far can you get in a year of training jits full time? I don't think very far, especially, you know, that'll be hard for some people to understand, but those that have trained for a long time, it's like, it takes 5 years sometimes of like good training, and then
it takes about 6 months just to evolve your game.
100%, and then the strength and conditioning. So if you get a year scholarship, how far can you go in that? I don't think you can go that far. It's because I've always looked at it as like, I love this sport so much, I want to do it after as well, and I know the higher the skill level comes, the more likely you are to run a gym, you're more likely to earn money doing whatever in the sport, but you need to build the skill level. The skill level is going to take 5 to 10 years at full-time pace to build. So I'm always realistic in, if they give me 1 year, that's not going to do much. So I've got to be ready for them to say,
you've got to work pretty hard in that down here now.
Yeah, you've got to work hard, and you know, you can only take one step by step, because sometimes they might say, or something might kick off somewhere and they'll be like, sorry, you're needed for something else, come back, and that's just my job, the way it goes. And I'll have to find other avenues to train somewhere.
I had another one come in the other day, and it was from a friend who said that they feel like you are the Jocko Willink of the UK.
Is that what they said?
Yeah. How would you feel about that statement?
Jocko. I wish, I've got his tattoo on me somewhere. Discipline equals freedom. I love the guy, to be honest. I think he's just, like, it's hard. Like, from round here, council kid, and like, I fucking hated discipline. I didn't really understand how it would change my life or whatever, but through sports and the army in general, I think, you know, people like, oh, you're, like you were just saying then, your life's fucking awesome. People like, you know, you get to, but then they haven't seen the 4 or 5 years when I had to get up at 5 or 6 in the morning, still do my normal job, train after work, but that took discipline. And then it took me a long time to understand that fucking, I think he's just a fucking good character. The word he spreads, I think, is missing sometimes now in society. I think we need more of those sort of fucking alphas that are out there telling people to be disciplined, because everyone's like, oh, nah, just chill, it's all good, just chill. And I think, yeah, there's time for that when you can chill and you should be that fucking way. But I think there's times when you can push, especially if you want to do well. I mean, like 10 years ago, I would not even fucking thought I would be anything, in any world medal or any, but through discipline, it's achievable. For someone like me, I'd fuck all and still solid, but through discipline, just acting every day, I feel like I can achieve a lot. I feel a lot of us can achieve a lot, but it just takes fucking discipline.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's a bit of a legend.
It's a skill, I think. Discipline.
100%.
It's a skill, and it's also knowing it leads to freedom. Because you hear the word discipline, you're like, fucking hell, it's boring. Like, what do you mean? Fucking no one wants to be disciplined. But then when you say, well, I'm 45 next year, and because I've had discipline to save and say I've bought investment properties for the last 20 years, now I haven't got to work. So I can do jits every day. I can fucking go and do this.
Same thing, like, I didn't go out and spend money on beers on the weekend, right, because I was wanting to train and do something else.
But then people, when you're 45, people are like, it's all right for you, you can fucking go and do what you want now. You're like, well, yeah, but it's because the 20 years I've done before that. And if I can do it, people know me from fucking years ago, anyone can do it, It's just fucking small steps, but it just takes so fucking long. And it's, knowing that concept is fucking rare. Like, as a council kid, I didn't know that. Like, anytime I heard discipline, I was like, fucking hell, bore off. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to hear about it.
When did that kick in, if you don't mind me asking? Was there a certain point?
I think tours I've been on. Once you start to go on to, like, you go to places like Afghanistan and even places like Kenya, they're not really war zones as much anymore, but they're just places when you think, oh, I had it tough when I was younger. My electric used to go and I didn't have electric for 24 hours. And then you go over to somewhere like Afghan, they've got no electric, no fucking running water. And then the kids are happy as fuck. You know, it's just, that starts to shift your mentality. I had an incident when I was on tour where I got blown up. That's when I started quit drinking and started to think about, fuck me, where do I want? It's a shame, but I feel like sometimes in life you need that little fucking bit of
a proper rocket up your ass.
It's like you need to, like, anytime I see people change, it's that's what they
it's a fucking funny. Look at the steppers ID. That's a rocket up your
ass. But you can't be any more literal, can you?
That's it. You're right. I think that's the only time I see people change generally is, unfortunately, when they have that fucking life or death moment where they're like, fuck, I'm not here forever. What do I want to do? When you ask that question, what do I want to do? And then you start to say, well, okay, this is what I want to do. How do I get there? Then when you say, how do I get there? You're like, fuck, it's going to be a long time. But if I use this fucking path, and I didn't know it would fucking work out when I first started doing it. I thought, was just see, year by year, see how it goes. And, you know, we're talking about my stuff in BJJ, but I've done other things in life where I would have thought, as well as BJJ, even in the army in general, just getting into the army was a fucking win for me. So I think, you can get a lot of places, but you need to start asking your questions of, where do you want to be? Like, you're not here forever. And I think a lot of people just coast through, unfortunately, and they're like, oh, my job's all right, I enjoy it-ish, it's all right, it's quite good. And
have you lost friends based on your decisions that you've changed over the time?
Yeah, massively. And it's one of the biggest things that I think held me back for a long time, because what I've found is as you change, let's say with my decision to quit drinking, like my friends, I felt like my friends almost, a lot of them from a drinking circle would be like, why are you not drinking with us? Do you think you're better than us? They never said that to me face to face. But anytime I went out with them, they're like, come on, let's have one or two. And then I'm like, nah, I'm just drinking. I'm just drinking Red Bulls or whatever. I'm fine. Then I feel like, oh, fucking hell, come on. But I felt subconsciously they're giving me that image that like I am portraying like, oh, I'm fucking better than you because I don't drink. And it wasn't really that. It was the fact that I couldn't drink because it was just fucking ruining me. Not, I don't think I'm better than them. I wish I could have 2 drinks and just chill and be chilled out and do whatever, but I can't, unfortunately. Not that type of personality. So I had to remove myself from those people sometimes, and it does hurt to do that, but once you do remove yourself from those people and you find people that are, now when I say to people I don't drink, they're like, yeah, like most of my friends now don't drink, and they're more supportive, and I think the jits crowd in general, I feel like you get the best of every sort of fucking person or whatever.
I think no one wants to go to open mat on a Sunday morning hungover. It's the worst thing ever. It's hard enough as it is.
But I do think you get like the best nutritionists, not the best as if like I think you get the best like police officers, doctors or whatever, because I think the actual 2 years of weeding out process is fucking horrendous. When you're white to blue belt, that process there is so shitty. If you can survive that little process, normally by the time you get to a blue belt, your ego's in check, you want to call it, or whatever, and you're pretty, you understand you don't know everything. There's people out there that's fucking harder than you, you know, you understand all these concepts, so you're a pretty good character. Being around those people, that fucking explodes your growth in different ways. So yeah, you've got to lose friends, unfortunately, and it is fucking shit as well, and sometimes family as well. I mean, it's just the way it is, though. I feel like the way I try to explain it is like, by you accelerating higher, they feel lower. Do you know what I mean? Even though they're not anywhere lower, they just feel like, oh, who do you think you are? You know what I mean? And they never say that.
But trapped in the matrix.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like then they feel like, oh, fuck you or whatever, and I just feel like it's shit, but it's just the way we live. And I think it's because, you know, being in the army, I'm moving out of circles all the time. I'm going to Kenya, I'm going to even up north, and then I'm going down south. So, but then some people are just staying around here. They're in that one circle of friends, the one circle of business or whatever. Yeah. They don't see anything else outside that. So when you step outside that and you try and do something else, they're like, fucking hell, where's he going? What's he doing? Whereas when you bounce from circle to circle and place to place, you're like, this fucking world's massive. People are doing all sorts of shit.
Would you class yourself as like an outlier in that sense then? You're happy to be like the odd person out to go and, you know, say, oh, I'm not fucking drinking because we feel ill. Are you happy to put yourself in that position? Yeah,
now more, because I just see how far it gets you. So like I know now that, you know, before even like the way I dressed would be, I used to be a bit of a chav. I'd be fucking up Lacoste or something shit like that. But now I just don't give a shit. I'm just like, I'm wearing what's comfortable. It's just train today with you lads, and I'm just like, whatever. It's just I just want to be.
I get told off for wearing a jiu-jitsu t-shirt every day. That's what I've got.
Yeah, that's what you've got. I just whack it on.
My wife hates it. She's like, you just wear black all the time. Like, it's just easier. I don't have to think about it.
I've got a couple of like blank t-shirts that I wear for work, so they get covered in shit. And I come home and this is like, when you go out, I'm like, oh fuck. She's like, you don't have fucking t-shirts back here. I was like, no. She's like, what's the smallest logo you got? Massive Tommy, like jiu-jitsu is my life. And she was just like, fuck's sake, like, she hates it.
But I think you just care less then, you know what I mean? You're just like, no one, and the thing is, you're more free then, you just like, fucking, you do what makes you happy. I think that's the big thing. And cool. Like, be that outlier if you can, and I don't know, see what it gets you, without being too fucking motivational and whatever.
You're the Jocko you are in the UK.
yeah, fucking hell, yeah, see, not Jocko.
I'll just shave my head, that's what I do. Yes, let's go.
Yeah, I like it. Trying to think of other things now.
I got the final one. I got the final one. Unless you got any more there.
Yeah, I don't have anything mega specific, but if you want to throw in the final question, we can nearly hit the 2 hour mark.
Oh, okay, cool.
So if you want to throw in the final question.
So a bit awkward, obviously, I know you're not drinking on the head.
Yes,
right? But
yes.
We'll ask you the same thing. So we get the previous guest to ask the following guest the question.
Yeah.
All right. And the question was, if you could take your competitive blue belt in your sphere, be that your club or whatever, how many beers would it take for you to not be able to sub him?
Ooh. Fucking hell. Competitive blue belt, let's think who comes to mind. Conrad's pushing quite hard at the minute. What, for me not to be able to sub him?
Do you know what? I'm going to say, actually, because I'm going to start Jack. Take Jack. How many beers before you couldn't sub Jack?
Jack from...
Go submit.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Jack from Pantheon. He's a fucking tough guy. He's a tough guy anyway. So I think it's going to take me... I think it'll still take me a good 5 beers before.
5 beers before he can't sub him.
Yeah.
Think about that though, 5 beers, your stomach's fucking going.
Oh, it is, yeah, maybe less, maybe less.
Trying to roll with someone.
Yeah, Jack's a gentle giant as well. Like anytime I roll him, I feel like, oh, he's trying to flow with me a little bit here.
Didn't feel like that when he was rolling with me.
I know, I'm sitting rolling with people like, fucking hell, throwing him through the window here. Yeah, he's fucking tough. He's done CrossFit for a long time, and he's like mobile and big, MMA. Yeah, a little bit.
He's come back from injury, I think I remember seeing as well.
Yeah, he's got real bad knees. I think he's like a little bit hypermobile-ish, and then he's got like the knee issue that comes along with that sort of condition.
I rolled with one person who's hypermobile, and it's the most scariest fucking thing I've ever done because this is when I was a white belt. I was like, I'll roll with you, right? And he figured out, because he was born breech, he can get his hips nearly over the back of his head.
Oh, shame on you. You can do that.
Can't stack him, and he figured this out pretty quick. So I was like, got me an armbar. I was like, stack him. I was like, why is stacking not working? What's going on? Armbar's coming on. Start panicking. And then the stuff he was doing with rubber guard, he can get his foot to go behind his head, the opposite side. So his right foot will go behind his left ear. And you're like, what the fuck? And he's like, is that comfortable? He's like, not really, but I can do it. And I'm just like, you're mental. But he fell trapped to getting his blue belt and disappearing off the face of the
Oh, shit.
And I think now, if he reached purple, he would be like...
Yeah, because that body type's rare.
Yeah.
Like the Shea Montague, the guy, do you know that? He's based up in Edinburgh.
Oh, okay.
He's got a blonde mullet.
Yes, I know him,
Yeah, and I went to jiu-jitsu, we went to, not the last Grapple Festival before, my friend came up, who's just pure Muay Thai, and he was like, one of the first matches was Shea.
Yeah.
He was like, is that normal for people? We like that? Like, no. Like, that is not normal.
He's just bendy limbs, man.
Yes.
Well, I got told he used to be a contortionist. So
really?
Which
Wow.
was like, don't surprise me. But,
No way.
Yeah.
Like, I'll give myself props. I can do a pretty solid rubber guard and a pretty solid Williams guard.
Nice, that's good.
But there's only so far my little legs can go. Like,
but then,
before someone starts bending, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
shit. Like,
this is like the way I look at it in terms of, I know we're going completely off tangent now and stuff, but like for me being like super heavy, I don't want to be just a fat overweight guy, right?
Yeah.
In the sense that I, again, touch wood, with the amount of stretching I do, so you go daily all the time. I'm like, no one can electric chair me. No one can put on a split me. And when it happens, they're like, oh, what the fuck's going on here? And I'm like, well, I'm just here literally like teetering, just like trying to balance myself. And I'm like, well, you're not going to sub me from here, and this is just fucking awkward, so you're going to have to let go at some point. So
I do feel like you make it easier for yourself, like competing or whatever, depending on, like, see, if you're like that kind of bendy body type, you're already like narrowing your like people that can go against that, and even training against someone like that's rare. So it's hard to develop a game to beat that kind of guy or girl that's really bendy and flexible. Same as Adam Ellis from Andy Roberts' Academy. He's like 6'6" or something and really stretchy and like bendy. And his game is just so difficult to, even if I've been north-south on him before, and he's just like put his legs like in my back, and I'm like, fuck, how have you done that? And I had like my head on his hip. So I was like, because normally, you know, they've got to like bring their torso up at least to do it. No, you can keep his torso flat and still go and still get my back, and I was like, fuck.
I think he's one of the only yoga for BJJ coaches in the UK. By Sebastian.
I know Corey. Corey Kent.
Yes.
He's now on there. So shout out to Corey. He does like those funny memes and stuff.
Sorry, Corey. Yeah, completely fucking overlooked you. Corey's great. No, but Adam Ellis, man, like you see him do the instructionals with him, and you're just like, I just don't understand how you have that kind of mobility.
But you can develop a good game for that, and it's hard for people, like people can't train against that body type, so you can't develop a system or an approach to beat it so easy as well.
You send it to John Danaher, you'll find
out. Oh yeah, I'll be there.
It'll be an 8 hour.
On mobility, just before we wrap this up, like, can you guys go on your neck and do the rounds where you can put your feet around the back of you into a circle?
No.
Hold on, so you're talking about length?
You know when you go like into a full stacked position and you put your legs behind you on the mat behind you, can you walk your legs behind you from side to side?
What, and there's no one putting pressure on top of it? Or
no, you're just doing the drill just to stretch.
Like a wrestler's drill. Have you seen Lubo before? Lubo, he does that. Oh my God,
I've seen one where they've gone flat and then they've like hipped up and gone round.
It's almost like you go into almost like a...
like a bridge or crab almost.
Am I doing it on this table? Or?
Go.
You're still facing up, but you can have your legs just behind you, and you can just like...
You can circle around. No,
I think I might be able to. I'll give it a crack.
Ooh,
Pez
nice.
does it all the time. I'm just like, mate, your mobility is ridiculous. But he's done capoeira for years.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to do.
Unreal.
I think the older I get, I think the more I think I'm going to go into that sort of like body balance, capoeira, whatever you want to call it. There's a guy down here who does grassroots, where he's doing more like animal movement stuff. I think that for...
Ido Portal, Conroe.
Yeah, something like that. I think, if I could guess, you know, especially for because you're going to get all these youngsters there that come through with jits-wise, and then I think what will happen naturally in 5 or 10 years is there'll be a call for that kind of stuff, because I think mobility will be a massive issue. I think people don't spend enough time doing it.
100%.
It's difficult. It's one of the most boringest things to do, isn't it? Mobility.
Actually, this is the best thing of CrossFit.
100%. Yeah, it teaches you that.
It teaches it. Like, like World's Greatest Stretch, for example, everyone's like, what the fuck's this all about?
Yeah.
You start doing it and you start realising like,
oh, it does work.
It makes a massive difference. And the fact like you check out your hips are way more and like all this type of stuff, it just makes a big difference. But yeah, summarise that. Stretch your hips, but stretch.
2 hours, that was quick.
Mate, it's good. Any other questions at all?
I think no, we're good. We're good to do it. I think.
Dude, thank you very much.
Thank
really
you, brother.
Done.
Awesome to meet you both. We'll train.